It's like we're back in the studio. Los Angeles, 1997.
That's a good analogy.
Brett Gurewitz behind the controls. This is Brett.
I don't need to tell the truth, but I never lie. I don't need to bow to you. You're just passing by. I never wanted to be the one you bitch and moan and come home to. But as long as you look good, I'll come back to you. Get inside my troubled mind with all of your threats. Sometimes I think I was blind. Not before we met. I never wanted to be the one that you depend on for your life. When you cry, it smells like soup. Sound like shown tonight. Never feel though I said all night. I gotta ride. Each time I said all night. No, I just might. You make me stay all night. It's just that side of you tonight that makes me stay all night. I'm gonna stay all night. You're an evil little girl. I'm a twisted man, tearing through your perfect world. Make you understand. I never wanted to be the one you bitch and moan and come home to. But as long as you look good, I'll come back to you and do the things you do. Stay all night. I gotta ride. Each time I stay all night. No, I just might. You make me stay all night. It's just that side of you tonight that makes me stay all night. I'm gonna stay all. I would never treat you bad. You deserve the best from me. If you want to keep your place, you better get down on your own.
Yeah, Todd wrote this one.
Yeah. You think?
This is not mine.
I gotta ride. Each time I stay all night. No, I just might. You make me stay all night. It's just that side of you tonight that makes me stay all night. I'm gonna stay all night.
R.I.P. Todd.
Text the round robin. Your questions, comments, wagers. Give us a reason. Sleeper fantasy play, your best alternative line, whatever you have. Text the round robin 757-354-5517.
Can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose cross stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, sing us that star-spangled banner yet wave, for the land of the free and the home of the brave.
This is the Deep End Broadcasting Network.
You are tuned in to the Round Robin with Stephen Murray on Deep End Broadcasting.
The docile sounds of the Pie Tasters bring us in on this Saturday morning NFL Wild Card Special. This is the round robin. We're just after 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I am Stephen Murray, your host, and we are here, the NFL playoffs, on this January the 11th, 2025, broadcasting from our deep end studios in the lovely Virginia Beach, Virginia, the United States of America. A gentle dusting of snow overnight and late in the hours of the Friday evening. And we wake up to what could possibly be 4 inches, 5 inches or so, they said. And maybe we have half an inch on the ground, which we will not complain about that, considering that most of the country probably wants a redo on 2025 already. I mean, California, what can we say about that? Dave Del Grande will be on from Castro Valley, California, with us in about 20 minutes. He is with Field Level Media, always joining our program every episode. He is a senior analyst at Stat Factor. He's covered the Golden State Warriors forever. NFL gambling expert, contributes to Deadspin. And we'll ask him about the state of California, not the state as a state, not as in 50 states, as in where are we now? I mean, you get it. Los Angeles is a very, very big area, but just complete devastation to that part of the country right now. So much so that we've even moved the football game to Glendale, the Rams and the Vikings, which you guys probably all know about that now. So no game at SoFi as they bail out of that part of the country to get to safer ground in Arizona. And then, of course, we have this snow apocalypse, which has covered a good portion of our country as well here in the last 24, 48 hours or so. So, yeah, obviously many people out there probably just want a little bit of a fresh start to 2025. I mean, what a way to ring in the new year. The funeral of our president yesterday, the fires burning out of control, lots of snow, terrorist acts on U.S. soil. So a crazy 10 or 11 days here, not to mention all the drones are still flying all over the place that everyone seems to have forgotten about as well. Crazy start here to the new year, and hopefully we can get you focused on something fun like NFL football. If you're having a hard time, maybe we'll give you a little bit of a break this morning as you drink your coffee, as you hopefully are traveling safely wherever you may be traveling on these snowy, icy roads throughout the country. If you're doing chores, whatever the case may be, just leave the volume on with your phone or put us on the old YouTube channel, and we will bring you as much as we can about the games, the 2 games today. We'll regroup for tomorrow. In the past, we've done just one show. This would be the full show on Saturday morning, but we like to do the Sunday show. So we'll do 2 games today. We'll do 4 games tomorrow. We'll look at the games a little bit today as well for tomorrow. We'll talk a little NBA with Dave Del Grande as well. We'll catch up on the NBA front a little bit, as he is an NBA writer following the Warriors. I'll get his thoughts on a few things there. Nephew Dave will come in the studio later. We'll talk about these 2 games. And then, as always, on a Saturday, a full NHL slate. So we'll take a look at that as, as we do our show on Monday nights, What the Puck is Going On, airing at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you were looking for a program Sizzle Lean earlier in the week, Karen Sizzle with the flu. My dad, who's 88 years old, so those 2 things just don't mix in the studio. So I told her to take the week off, and we will reconvene with that. My man Allah checking in from New Haven, Connecticut. Good to see you. Right off the bat, let's take a look at your picks. You like Herbert for 40-plus rushing yards today. That's interesting. Lamar Jackson for 40 yards. McConkey for 5
receptions, an anytime touchdown for McConkey, and Nico Collins 5 catches and a touchdown, and a Mark Andrews touchdown. So there you go, my man, the true a la Butler from New Haven, Connecticut. If you guys have any plays you want to submit, go ahead and send it to us on the text hotline, 757-354-5517. That is 757-354-5517. And that number is up on the screen. I've been doing tickets all week. Need to do a little bit of production, but we'll post some tickets for today here in a little bit. I'm going to have to run and get a coffee here when we start playing Dave Del Grande, which I recorded yesterday. So keep that in mind. So we'll play Dave Del Grande. I'll grab a coffee, and then I'll get onto the portion of posting some tickets on the screen for you guys. I know we've got a lot of positive feedback, and you like to see the winners as much as everything we have coming up as well. Tough beat last weekend with Minnesota, the Vikings losing to Detroit, at which they were on the goal line a million times but couldn't score, and that cost us a division of future on Sunday night. I actually won a little bit. I actually won a smaller bet last week and cashed out on another bet that would have lost with some Sam Darnold rushing yards attached to it. I had 2 different tickets on it, so I went ahead and took the dice offer that they gave me, and we'll just call that another push. So through the season, through the 18 weeks of the NFL, 10 winning weekends, 3 losing weekends, and 5 pushes where basically we made our money back or broke even, or, give or take $100, we'll say, but nothing crazy. So very successful regular season. And if you're new to the show, that is the gist of this program. As we get up early, talk about the updated lines, the weather, look at every angle across the board for wagering. We're not necessarily chasing your best half point. We're doing a lot of things that are frowned upon, such as multi-leg parlays, trying to turn $10,000 into $2,000, $5,000, $8, whatever the case may be, and knowing that if we turn $10 into $5,000, that gives us 500 opportunities to lose, and then we break even if we don't win within that 500 time frame. But with our knowledge and professionalism, we assure ourselves that within 500 opportunities, we will get a winning ticket again and free roll on the NFL for the season. And that is exactly what we've done. My background is this, in case you're like, who the hell is this schlep on the TV trying to tell me what to bet on? Well, one, I'm not trying to tell you what to bet on. I'm trying to get you to think for yourself. But if you want to tag along, you absolutely can. Those who have tagged along have been very grateful for it. But I am a sports wagerer since 1990, which is 35 years at this point. Been part of the management of sports bookmaking. So managing sports books, been a part of that for, the better part of those 25 years. I'd say about 18 or so. So 25 years gambling, 18 years with the sports book. And then my degree is in media as well, in the media since 1990, 91. So 24 years there. Add all that together, and we're looking at something like, 87 years combined experience of media, sports gambling, and sports bookmaking. So I think I know what I'm doing, and we've done great on the season, and we won. So that is it. And now it is my true belief that the bread and butter comes playoff time. I always expect to be successful in the playoffs. Anything less is a disappointment. It's been rare that we can go through the whole playoffs without a winner. I think in the last 4 or 5 years, I think there's been one of those cases. But let's see, we won big on the Brady Super Bowl with the Chiefs. That was a huge one for us. That same year, winning another big ticket with when the Buccaneers beat the Saints in the playoffs on that Sunday night crazy game. I think last year we won a nice big ticket because we actually won a couple of them, but we won one specifically, and we'll try that same strategy this week, is we took one of the over-unders on one of the later games. I think it was the Sunday night game, maybe last year, was the Rams and Lions on a Sunday night game, and went ahead and dumbed down. I think they played on a Saturday night, actually, where there was a game where everyone said, this is going to go over. There's no doubt about it. This is an over. It looked like an over. There's no way it's going to go under. They had 34 points at halftime to get to 49.5. So that sounds like it's going to go over. And then lo and behold, in the second half, just 10 points. And what did I do? I went ahead and made the game over 43.5 instead of over 49.5. So my multi-leg parlay ended up cashing because I moved down an over-under. We'll try that same approach this week. Got a couple tickets tied in with Ohio State money line last night. And then Ohio State on a ticket minus 12.5 gets home on that scoop and score. So a few things tied into those. We'll kind of get into that, and I'll post those tickets as we go through the morning. All right. So first thing we usually do on the show is we look at the updated lines. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm pretty sure they're as stagnant as ever with the two games today, starting at 4:31 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The Chargers are laying 41.5. Now, the Texans are heavily juiced here. So maybe we get down to 2.5 here with the Texans. But the Chargers, Jim Harbaugh, first game of coaching the Chargers in the playoffs against the Texans team, who usually does very well in this 4 o'clock playoff window in which they've owned basically every time they get awarded a home game. It's always the Texans, or I think they played the Bengals on the road at some point as well. But it's always the Texans getting this 4 o'clock game. 41.5 is the total. Concerning things for me on the end of the Texans would be mainly their offensive line and just their trenches. They are decent defensively for sure. Herbert seems to be hot. Stroud has regressed a little bit, but he's under duress. They just don't have a line, and I don't think that's a good recipe today against the Chargers. So I think the Chargers in the trenches look strong. We'll talk about that game as we go throughout the program. We'll have plenty of good angles. Trust me, talking to Dave Del Grande, we dug up a lot of stuff just talking to him. We'll play both of our conversations today and tomorrow with him about the games on the respective days. And we'll surely find more angles as we go through the program today and tomorrow. And the other night game tonight, Steelers and Ravens, division rivalry. Maybe this line's out of control, 9.5. But we saw the Ravens cover a big number just a couple of weeks ago against the Steelers. 9.5, 43.5 is the total in that game. 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Getting a lot of text here early in the morning. So we'll check those out in a minute. Russell Wilson, I mean, he needs to step it up. I mean, could we see some Justin Fields at some point? I wouldn't doubt it. No Zay Flowers for the Ravens. That's going to be concerning. But Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson, and crew, can they advance to the next round? Both of these teams have struggled in the playoffs at various points. In fact, if the Steelers lose today, they'll set the consecutive loss record in the playoffs for a team in the playoffs. They'll have the most losses in a row. And the Ravens can't go throughout this entire season, excuse me, what they just did and turn up with a dud on Wild Card Saturday night. So interesting stuff in Baltimore. Weather, not an issue in Texas, at the Houston Texans Stadium, of course. Weather, just cold, 31 degrees at kickoff in Baltimore tonight. And then any line movement for the other games? No. I expect the Buffalo total to go up. It's at 47.5, and that just seems low to me. You got to think people are going to start unloading on the over at some point. They are 8.5 point favorites. No major weather issues there, just a cold day and Buffalo, it looks like. Same in Philadelphia. They lay 4.5 to the Packers, over under 45.5 in that game. The Buccaneers and the Commanders, Bucks -3 over 50.5 in that game. And then the Monday night game now in Glendale, Arizona, Vikings -2.5 and 47.5. That line has kind of been all over the place a little bit with the venue change, and the Vikings now the declared favorite in that one. All right, so we got the 2 games today. That will be our focus. We'll go ahead and queue up my man Dave Del Grande. We'll get to him first, and then nephew Dave and I will come back into the studio and go through the slate of games for today. We'll take a look at some NHL. We're going to start Dave Del Grande off with a little NBA after we talk a little Wildfires. And so be patient with the NBA stuff if you're not into that. Yeah, in fact, it actually is decent little knowledge, as you might gain a little bit of perspective. It's always fun to do the cross-sport parlays this time of the year. I mean, it's the perfect time for it. You can pick a team to win the AFC, pick a team to win the NFC, or just pick a team to win the Super Bowl. You can parlay that to the NCAA basketball tournament. You can parlay that to the Masters if you like, or things that I like as well, which paid off last year going 5-0 on a ticket. The NBA Eastern Conference or Western Conference Finals, or the NHL Eastern Conference or Western Conference Finals. So multi-sport, multi-leg parlays to be had as well. And like I said, we'll come up with some of those as we go through. I got a couple already. I got the Bills tied into Notre Dame. I think I have the Rams to win the division a few weeks back at plus 280. I got that tied into Notre Dame. And I think like Chelsea in the Premier League. The Premier League's another one you can bet futures-wise if you feel like you have a good grasp for that. And still some good prices on some teams who can win that thing at the end. Kind of an interesting season in the Premier League. All right, so let's go ahead and we'll get our man on here from Castro Valley, California. He, again, is a senior analyst at Stat Factor, a columnist with Field Level Media. He is the founder of MrFantasy.com, also a contributor to Deadspin. He covers the Golden State Warriors, but he joins us every week to discuss the National Football League and every wagering angle. We look at primarily the NFC West and the AFC West teams, but as the season grows and gets towards the end and to the playoffs, we'll go ahead and take a look at everything. We like the fun games, the high-scoring games. We'll come up with a good, solid prop sheet of conservative plays, and then you'll hear words like greedy, and that in turn refers to bets of like plus 300, plus 400, plus 500 or more, where he likes to put the greedy plays all on one ticket, but come up with one good, hardcore, conservative ticket that we can bring home the cash with. And he does pretty good. We usually nail most of these. Definitely have some winning tickets along the way with Dave Del Grande. So without further ado, let's get an update for what's going on out there in California from Castro Valley, Cali, our man Dave Del Grande. I know you're well north of the fires, but maybe tell the world give me a little West Coast perspective on what's going on out there with the wildfires.
Well, it's there's been a lot of fires in Northern California. I'd say over the course of the last year, they just don't seem to go away. You don't see a whole lot of it along the coast, but a lot of it inland, and I live closer to the coast, so it hasn't really impacted me directly. But a lot of the families from here have vacation homes, as you head toward Lake Tahoe and toward the Nevada border, and so it's hit home a little bit here over the course of the last year, but nothing like this. This is this is unbelievable, the damage that's being done. I mean, and so much of the reporting is being focused on the Hollywood people, the rich people losing their big time homes and what have you, and that's certainly terrible. But there are many, many, many more people like myself who, just have a regular old person, has a regular old home, just happens to be somewhat near famous people. I mean, I hate to say it, but these are the people that you really feel sorry for, because they don't have the means of rebuilding or moving or like some of these others do. So it's in 1906, to give you a little bit of California history here. 1906, of course, there was a big earthquake in San Francisco that caused fires, and in some ways, Northern California and Southern California are, I mean, might as well be North Carolina and South Carolina. I mean, they're not anything like each other. Northern California learned its lesson that this big earthquake that caused all these fires, it helped Northern California along the coast prepare itself better for these kinds of situations. The ability to take water from the ocean and use it to save the coastline has, 100 some odd years later, there's been very, very, very little, if any, damage done on the coastline for fires. LA, didn't take the same precautions that San Francisco did in the wake of that tragedy, and now, in some ways they're paying the price for that, because they're not as well prepared. If this had happened in San Francisco, granted, there's the winds are making it very, very difficult to stop the fire. But if this had happened in San Francisco, I think that San Francisco would have been, and the areas around here would have been a lot better prepared for something like this than LA has been.
Wow. Yeah, my brother's in Thousand Oaks. I think they just gave him the warning last night to get on out.
Well, that's the thing about LA. If you lived in New York, or maybe even in Chicago or LA, you realize, but I'm sure many people don't realize, just how vast an area
it
is.
Yeah,
when you talk about Los Angeles, it's not like talking about Washington D.C. or Baltimore, or one of the big cities around where you live. I mean, this is just millions and millions and millions of people, and you from Thousand Oaks, down to what you would consider to be South Los Angeles. You're probably talking about close to 100 miles. I mean, so and so it's you could when you hear that there's this big fire going on in Los Angeles, you do have to ask, well, what part of Los Angeles? Because you might like saying, well, there's a big fire going on in Virginia. Well, like, what part of Virginia? Because you need to be more specific when you're talking about LA. It is such a incredibly big area with so many people.
Yeah, I mean, I actually kind of got that impression just from some of the helicopter views and just kind of watching the fires. I'm like, wow, look how far these houses go. I mean, the place is immense. Just looking at it from that perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, like I said, it's really hard to comprehend unless you've been there, or unless you've driven through it or whatever. I've got a brother who lives in the San Diego area, so to get from here to there, you drive all the way through the whole north to south through Los Angeles. Oh my goodness, like I said, it's like driving through the whole state of Nevada. Forget about the traffic part of it. It's just and town after town after town after town of some areas, very rich people, and some areas, like I said, just regular old people like you and me. So it's devastation like this is tough on everybody. But I feel sorry for the little guys.
I think I read somewhere just because of the sheer price of insurance, a lot of people just don't have homeowners insurance out there now. Is that true?
Well,
Is that true?
It's more than that. I mean, they simply will not sell fire insurance.
Oh wow!
In Northern California, this has been a big thing. Like I said, there's been, while there hasn't been, thank goodness, any kind of big fire anywhere near me, for, I don't know, 20 to 30 years. But in inland, more towards Sacramento, more towards Nevada, where there's been these big fires in Northern California, obviously it's taken a major toll on the insurance companies, and they see the potential there, with the lack of rain and what have you, the forests, and the potential problems, that you have at these towns where there's been the fires. And they just say, you know what, it's just not smart for us to sell insurance to these people because, we'll take a killing if there's a fire.
Right.
And that, it's you hear that, you say, oh, geez, thanks a lot. We'll go to the next company who has a better attitude. But, then there is no next company. They all kind of, it's a financial thing, a financial decision on their part. And so, there's been a lot of political pressure for these people to offer, fire insurance, and some have. I think it's, it'll be interesting to see now what happens in the wake of this tragedy. But in Northern California anyway, you've been able to find fire insurance, 5 times the price that it used to be. But, as we see here, you can't put a price too high on something like that.
Wow. Okay. Sports-wise, we've moved the playoff game. We've had NBA games canceled. I'm assuming a lot of college games canceled as well. Is this a distraction for these teams? And it has to be, right? Especially a team like the Rams who, they're probably having their houses burned down and they're on the road and probably thinking half about what's going on there and half about the game, maybe.
Yeah, again, it's a tricky thing to talk about because the Rams are south of LA, and so these fires are mostly north of LA,
right.
and so unless this thing really gets out of control. I don't think a lot of these players are necessarily impacted by it, and so, but yes, they have friends and some I guess would have family, in those areas, but it's almost like they're in a completely different world.
Right. Okay.
And the thing is that, the game, and rightfully so, the pressure on sports when something like this happens to cancel the game, to show some sympathy for these people is immense. And so while the stadium, the area around the stadium, I don't predict the future, but there's no way that part of Los Angeles is going to become involved in this. But at the same time, you don't want to say, well, yeah, you got your problems, but we're fine down here, and we're going to go ahead and play our game. That's just a bad look. And so I think that the game being moved, has more to do with that than really a safety issue. So, that all said, I don't think it's going to be a big distraction. I mean, they've been able to practice on a regular schedule. They haven't had to move anything. And for most of the players, unless they're, they live, 50 miles north of, of where their practice facility and where they're playing their games, unless they live in that area for whatever reason. I don't think, you haven't really heard anyway a lot of stories about, oh, this guy can't go home or this guy's house burned down. It's more like, Steve Kerr or, the family home, where he grew up, which was north of Los Angeles.
Right.
I mean, you hear a lot of these types of stories of guys who used to live there or still have a family home in the area, but don't live, are employed now somewhere else. So I don't think it'll be a big distraction for the players.
Okay. All right. We'll get back to the NFL. We haven't done NBA in a minute, and you know that sport very well. So let me just pick your brain on a couple things here. I'm willing to give at this stage in the game, and I know there's a lot of regular season left. I know everything kind of really starts at the playoffs. I get it. I understand it. But I'm getting ready to give even a little bit more than a puncher's chance here for Cleveland to come out ahead of Boston in the Eastern Conference. Boston, they are actually the worst team in the league against the spread. I don't know if you knew that or not. But just watching them, and it's just a lot of going through the motions. They should shoot a ton of threes. As you talked about on the show before, Jason Tatum the other night, 1 for 9 from three-point land for the Celtics. Another good team in Oklahoma City was able to pull away from them in the second half. I know they played Cleveland before and beat them handily, but 33-4 is not by accident. The coach has a good thing going. Mobley is as improved as anybody in the league right now. And I think when it gets down to it, Cleveland has the talent, and I think they'll be able to go toe-to-toe here with Boston, and I think they can take them out in the series. So your thoughts on that first?
Well, as you said, it's a long way away, and the key for Boston, certainly more so than Cleveland, is going to be how healthy are they at playoff time? I mean, if Porzingis
that's important.
healthy,
I'm assuming everybody's healthy, yes, but that's a
if
tough
Porzingis
assumption.
Is healthy. I mean, because Boston really only has 6 players. I mean, Pritchard has had a really good season this year, so I guess you could throw him in there as a 7th useful player. But when push comes to shove at playoff time, they're going to play their big 6 guys, and their big 6 are better than anybody else's big 6. So that'll be a big issue. Now, Porzingis is always injured.
Right.
How can you really count on him to be there for the playoffs? He wasn't there last year, for the majority of the playoffs. So then you're down to 5 guys. And then the depth becomes a bigger thing, particularly when, the pack has caught up to Boston a little bit, not because Boston has gotten worse. They've got the same guys. But the Knicks have taken strides, to try to match up better with Boston. If you look at the standings, the Knicks, you would think, Boston's way ahead of them.
Yeah, now 2.5 games.
But they're not. There's only a couple of games.
Yep, couple games. Yep.
Philadelphia is another team that, is certainly pacing itself for the playoffs. Recently, they have done well. They've had George healthy. They've had Maxi's been healthy. Embiid, I mean, I guess you could say he's been healthy. He doesn't play all the time. But when they've shown in recent weeks that, when they have the potential, maybe not to win a series against Cleveland or Boston, but certainly to take them the distance. And that might be the difference this year. If it's Boston and Cleveland making the Eastern Finals, then the question becomes, well, who had to go 7 games in the series before just to get there, and who were the lucky ones that drew Orlando or whoever, Miami, whoever it might be, and had a sweep or had a 5-game series? Because that could be the deciding factor between those two teams, especially, like I said, especially for Boston, which doesn't have a whole lot of depth.
All right. Let's see here. Who is maybe your best team in the East right now that you thought this team would be terrible, and now you're kind of like saying to yourself, these guys aren't too bad. Kind of fun to watch, competitive, and I can see this team getting into the playoffs and maybe even winning a first-round matchup.
Well, that's going to be difficult because, like I said, to win a first-round matchup, you're going to have to beat Cleveland, Boston, Philadelphia, or New York. And I think those four stand out above the rest. I think that Orlando, when they're healthy, has proven that, they can compete with those guys. I'm not sure that they can beat them at that point.
Right.
But from the rest of the pack, there are some very interesting and fun teams. I'd say at the head of this group, you would say would be Atlanta,
right,
who kind of showed their colors in the NBA Cup thing. I don't think they're nearly as good as any of the top four teams, even the top five. A team to watch, I think, moving forward. Well, again, I didn't even mention Indiana. Indiana's kind of the same way. They should have benefited from their playoff experience last year. Of the non-top four teams, I'd say they'd be the team you wouldn't want to draw in the first round.
Right.
But again, that's not really a surprise team to me. A team to watch at the trade deadline and moving forward is Chicago. Chicago's been very surprising to me this year. I thought that they were going completely in the tank. I mean, they got rid of DeRozan. They tried to get rid of Levine. They seem to always have Vucevic on the trade market. Lonzo Ball, was he ever going to play again? They made this trade, with Oklahoma City where they picked up Giddey, who's been kind of a disappointment for Oklahoma City. And they gave up Caruso, who was a nice, good, steady player. It just looked like they're tanking to try to get a draft pick. But they've been surprisingly good to the point where, what are they going to do now at the trade deadline? Are they still interested in trading Levine? Are they still interested in trading Vucevic? Obviously, Ball's come back. And contributing something. I would expect that to increase as the season goes along. And Giddey's having a very good season for them. And Kobe White has been an all-star. Mm-hmm. So I mean, they play an entertaining style. They have some depth. They have some star quality players. I still wonder, are they really playing for the team, or are they playing to get out of there? I don't know what's going on there. But it'll be interesting to see if what they do, if they trade, Vucevic, who I think would be the most logical guy for them to trade. Do they bring back younger players and kind of, write off the season and start thinking about it 2 or 3 years down the road? Or do they in some way bring back, veteran players, guys who are good fits for what they have and take a run at it this year? I don't think that would be a wise thing to do, but there's enough has gone right for them so far this year that they could be thinking to themselves, hey, we can go in there and surprise Boston or surprise Philadelphia in the first round of the playoffs. So let's take a shot at it. So that would be my long shot, my team to watch moving forward.
As you kind of mentioned, Billy Donovan picking up the pace a little bit. They score a ton of points, almost 118 a game. But that's their problem. They give up a ton, almost 121.2 a game. But yeah, they've been interesting. Some of their scores have definitely been through the roof, I've noticed. Almost like a feast or famine type of team in a way. Some nights they look terrible. Other nights they look really, really good.
Exactly. And there are a handful of those teams. We've talked about these teams before.
Right.
I think it really added to the entertainment of the league this year. Because if you're going to be a bad team,
Yeah,
at least
go
be
up
a
and go
fun
down,
bad
go up and down. Yeah.
You know, and Toronto is this way as well. I mean, Toronto's not a good team, but they're, you know, they're running up and down the court as well. Atlanta obviously is playing this style. You've got, you know, in the West, you know, Portland's trying to play this style. Even Brooklyn now, Brooklyn bringing in D'Angelo Russell, who, you know, you know, this is a perfect fit for D'Angelo Russell. You know, give him the ball, let him run up and down this court, take crazy shots. You know, it adds. It doesn't make them necessarily a better team. It just makes them a more fun team. And sometimes it works out. I mean, look what's happened with Memphis. Memphis has never been this kind of a team where they run up and down the court. But now they run up and down the court. Their scores are as high as anybody in the league. And now that, you know, Morant has come back and is starting to play, I think he's going to be better as the season goes along. And then, you know, they haven't. G.G. Jackson was a great find for them last year. Came on really strong at the end of the season. Hurt his foot during the preseason. Hasn't played yet, but is expected back. You know, so I think sometime this month. You throw him onto that Memphis team, and it just gives them one more weapon, one more guy to run up and down the court.
Yeah, I mean, Vince Williams too. Vince Williams, I think too. He's a good little player. If they can get him back.
They've got. I mean, like I said, it's shocking to me that they've gone from this. I mean, the team that wanted to beat up on you to now and brought in Marcus Smart, you know, who's a classic bully type player. That's this is a perfect fit for Memphis. You know, he replaces Dylan, Dylan Brooks, who was this kind of player, and now it's almost like, geez, why'd we bring in Marcus Smart? We don't play this style anymore. Let's get rid of him and let's bring in some other athlete. And they've been fun and winning. So there is a path to success by playing this style. Like I said, Atlanta, Chicago, these teams, I wouldn't necessarily want to draw these teams in the first round of the playoffs, not because you're not going to beat them, but they'll run you ragged.
Yeah, they could take a game or two and make your life a lot harder down the road.
Right,
that's for sure.
Right. So
okay. Back to Memphis real quick. I know we've killed Embiid for not playing before, but you got to give credit to Jaren Jackson. I think he's only missed a couple of games, maybe 3, and they played 38. And I'm sure he didn't miss those willingly. And he's been a great player for them. The one guy who's been the consistent with the injuries. That the other Jackson Jr. from Memphis.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's the thing about these teams that want to run up and down the court. You still need size. You need a shot blocker around the basket. You need a guy to get the rebound. You can't you mentioned how many points Chicago gives up. Well, Atlanta gives up a ton of points. Toronto gives up a ton of points. It kind of comes with the territory when you play that style. But you can't kill yourself by giving up layup after layup after layup or follow shot after follow shot. I mean, you have to, if you're going to be bad defensively, you at least have to be able to clear the boards and provide some resistance around the basket so that instead of giving up 130, you're only giving up 120, and now you've got a chance to win. And that's what Jaren Jackson does. I mean, he's a great shot blocker. He's not a big, strong guy, but he comes from off the ball, kind of like Wemby in some ways. And you're always, where's Jackson? I know he's around here somewhere, coming to block my shot from behind. And he provides that kind of resistance around the basket. And like you said, he's been an injury waiting to happen, seemingly these last 2 or 3 years. And, knock on wood, but he's healthy this year. Bane, who's a very good player, was injured earlier on in the season. He's kind of finding his way. Like I said, Morant kind of finding his way, and then you've got G.E. Jackson ready to come back. Memphis to me is about as fun a team as there is going right now.
Yeah, not so much as fun to watch because they're more of the old school traditional stingy defense type of team. There's a team right above them, Houston. So they have a pretty decent thing going for them right now, huh?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I keep waiting. They would be the type of team that I'd want to draw in the first round of the playoffs because of their lack of experience.
Right.
They're kind of where Oklahoma City was maybe a year or two ago. They seem to be heading in a really good direction. Big time surprise with how well they've done this year. I take the Lakers over them. I take the Suns over them in a playoff series, even if it was a matter of, being a 3 versus 6 with the Suns or Lakers, in the underdog role. I just don't think Houston has the type of experience, nor do they have the star power. You come playoff time and when you play the Lakers, it's going to be all LeBron and all Anthony Davis. Well, Houston, I don't think has that guy or hasn't identified him. Sengun has been
they're very
nice
balanced.
player.
If you look at their numbers, they're very balanced.
Right. And so in a playoff game, 3 minutes to go and the game's tied, well, who's
going to take your shot?
Right. Who's taking that shot for you? I don't think Houston has identified that guy yet.
Yeah, maybe Jalen Green. Maybe we underestimate him a little bit. I don't know. Every time I do watch some of their games, which is briefly, it does seem like him or Smith is doing something good. And I'm just now looking at their stats for the first time this season right now. But Green, that's not bad. 20 points a game, almost 5 rebounds.
I think in some ways he's been a disappointment.
Right, okay.
He's been very inconsistent. You look at his game totals. He scores 20. He scores 8. He scores 25.
Right.
He scores 9. And then you look at he's a volume shooter. That there's nothing wrong with that as long as you're not the guy who they count on every night.
Right.
The Celtics can overcome Jason Tatum's 1 for 9, 3-point games because Brown scored 25 and White scored 20 and Horford scored 18 and Porzingis. So if you've got enough depth, you can overcome that. And then when the guy does have a big night, then you're that much better.
All right. Anything else NBA here I want to talk about? Do you have a surprise team in the West that is kind of, besides the Memphis and maybe even Houston, anyone else kind of stick out to you like this?
To me, the team to watch in the West is San Antonio.
Yeah, me too.
They've been surprisingly good.
Yeah.
But I just can't believe it. I can't believe that they're, that they're actually going to do something moving forward here in terms of, it appears they're going to make the playoffs. And the way they're going, heck, they could be a 4 or 5 seed. The way they're playing and the way a lot of these other teams are treading water. A buddy of mine asked me the other day, at what point do you think Wemby will be considered the best player in the NBA? And I said, it could happen by the end of this season if San Antonio continues to win. I mean, he's got to get on national TV more often. You're not going to be considered the best player if you're on a team that's 500 or what. He's just not that much better than everybody else that you have to be if you're, a 500 team. But if this team continues to win and continues to move up, and all of a sudden there's a 3 or a 4 seed, a 50 win team, I think he'll get votes. It's hard to unseat Jokic, but Jokic has missed a handful of games now, and if he happens to miss 10 more over the course of the season, then he's not going to win the MVP. And so then the door swings open for somebody else to win, and it could be Gilgeous Alexander,
right.
although I still don't think he's got that name, but he'll be considered. Giannis will be obviously he's always a candidate,
right?
But it wouldn't be shocking if by the end of the season, if the Spurs, continue to win and maybe even win at a greater pace than they've been winning. I'm not sure that's possible, but if that happens, I think that by the end of the year, Wemby could be considered, the top player in the NBA.
That's a team who feeds off each other's energy really well. Like Shohan, he literally does remind me of like a Dennis Rodman type of player who can actually shoot the ball too. And just, anytime the ball's on the backboard, they're a good chance to come down with an offense or defensively.
Yeah, they put a nice thing together. They and I didn't understand it at the time when they had they had 2 picks in the top 8 this year, and they took one, and then they traded the other one away for a pick in next year's draft. I didn't get it when they did it. I thought, geez, what's this saying? They're giving up on this season already. So they're well positioned to move forward as well. This happens when your star player is young on his contract. They're going to have a ton of cap room moving forward. They're going to have draft picks moving forward. They've really done a good job of rebuilding.
All right, let's get to the NFL. Let's try to have a little bit of fun before we get into the breakdown of the games here. And let's start with the teams that are off this week first, which is Kansas City and Detroit. And I'm going to bring up their fatal flaw. So I'll tell you what I think is their fatal flaw, and then you can kind of tell me what you think theirs is, if they have one at the end of the day. Whether you think that they can or are going to win the Super Bowl at this point or not. Go ahead and tell me if they don't win, why they won't. And I guess I'll start with the Chiefs. And I think the fact that they just played too many close games at the end of the day, eventually that's bound to play catch up with you. Obviously, they played the backups when they got killed by the Broncos last week. But there's going to be a little bit of rust factor involved now with all this time off. And the fact that they just kind of play it so close, I think you're only going to get away with that for so long before that comes back to bite you. So if Kansas City has a fatal flaw, it's the fact that they just play everything close to the vest, played down to their competition at times even, and keep things too close for comfort. So what's your fatal flaw?
I'm not sure there is one with Kansas City. I agree with what you said, that the regular season was head-scratching. The number of close games that they had, not even against good teams. But it seemed to me that they were coming together at the end of the season. Yeah, like you said, throw out that last game. That doesn't count. They started to play better down the stretch. And just watching them offensively, they do so many things well. Their line is good. They've got decent outside receivers now, even with Rice injured. Obviously, they've developed 2 tight ends. They've developed 2 running backs. And they got the ultimate winner. And that's the scary thing about Kansas City is to beat Kansas City. you have to be 2 scores ahead of them with 6 minutes to go, because you just, if you're only 1 score ahead, they'll find a way to beat you. They always do. And defensively, they're very solid. So if they score and then you get the ball back for that last chance down the field, well, they're just as likely to stop you as you are to go in and score against them. So I think I'd be shocked if Kansas City doesn't win the AFC.
All right, Detroit. If they have something wrong, I feel stupid saying their defense the way that they played against Minnesota. I mean, a fantastic game plan by their coaching staff here the last few weeks. With all the injuries, they're still able to get it done. But at some point, their fatal flaw will be the fact that very same defense at some point against maybe a better offensive line, maybe that could be the Eagles or something like that. We'll find a little bit of a harder time to stop the opposition, and then they'll face a good enough defense to kind of maybe limit them. But, man, the more I think about it here the last week, the more I am buying into something like the Lions and the Chiefs here to round it all out at the end of the day. But if they do have a fatal flaw, I guess it's still on that defense.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt about it, and I'm not impressed by the last game. I mean, you can't play like that. You can't just all out blitz the quarterback every time.
Right. At some point, that's going to burn
wide
you.
open receivers. Right. Sam Darnold looked like the Sam Darnold of old.
Right.
And that he was terrible.
Right.
Embarrassingly bad. When you knew every
that was a tough
was
watch.
Coming.
A tough watch.
I mean, a week earlier, when the Lions played the 49ers, the 49ers must have thrown 15 passes to receivers who were open by 5 yards or more. And almost always, Kittle, they still don't know where Kittle is on the field, the number of passes he caught with nobody near him. And did Minnesota try to take advantage of that to Hawkinson over the middle, over Jones on, circling out of the backfield? No, they threw a bunch of stupid downfield passes. They had the quarterback hold the ball. He didn't respond well to the bright light. He was awful in that game, and so I don't give Detroit any credit in that. If Detroit tries that same strategy against any other team in the playoffs, they're going to lose that game. And will they be getting guys back? Sounds like Montgomery's coming back, and sounds like a couple other guys might be coming back. That'll certainly help. But Detroit's defense is bad enough that no matter who they play, that team is going to be in the game, is going to have a chance to beat them, because you always know you can score points against Detroit. And offensively, while Detroit is really good, it's not like they have this one unstoppable. It's not like they have Josh Allen, or Mahomes, where you say, "Oh my God, we just don't know how to stop this guy." They don't have that kind of weapon. They don't. Gibbs, Gibbs is very good, but the irony is, bringing Montgomery back means Gibbs plays less. And they don't have Jefferson on the outside. They certainly don't have a top 10 quarterback. And so they offensively, while they're really good, it's not intimidating. There are ways that you can slow them down a little bit, and that's maybe all you need, given how bad Detroit's defense is. So, as much as I'd say I'd be shocked if Kansas City doesn't win the AFC, I'm going to be shocked if Detroit wins the NFC.
Okay. So the AFC, you have a pretty decisive, maybe not decisive, might not be the right word, for the Chiefs to win the AFC. NFC then, is this wide open from top to bottom?
Well, that's, I don't know. I think the Eagles are clearly the second best team, if not the first best team going in. I think they would rate, to me, as at least a co-favorite going in. They're they're the best team defensively, and they've got the big-time weapons offensively to hurt you in so many different ways. They've got the experience. I'd rate them. If I had to pick one from the NFC, it would be them. To me, the next best team with a chance in the NFC would be Tampa. They just find a way to win. I don't know how they do it. But the quarterbacks had an amazing season, and they're not really good defensively either. But they're like Kansas City in some way. If the game's close, they find a way to win those games, and that's what it's going to take in a playoff structure like this, where there are not going to be any easy games. I mean, you're going to have to win close games. Whether it's the first weekend or the last weekend. And I just have more confidence in them winning that kind of a game than I do Minnesota or Green Bay, Washington, the Rams. I just don't, I don't have the same kind of confidence level in those teams that I do. And they're probably, top to bottom, every bit as good as Tampa, if not better. But I just, Tampa's got the quarterback, and these other teams, I don't think have that kind of a winner, or certainly experienced winner at quarterback. And so I won't be surprised if Tampa, it's going to depend who they draw in the second round. If Tampa can beat Detroit, I'm not sure they could beat Philly, but I think they could hang in. Obviously they beat Philly last year in the playoffs.
They beat them earlier this season too, 33-16.
Yeah, and so I don't know. I just think Philly's a notch above the other teams in that conference right now. I think Tampa has a better shot of winning the NFC than anybody other than Detroit or Philly.
I do like Tampa. I mean, just for the sole fact that they have beaten Philadelphia before, they've beaten Detroit before. They've hung in there with the Chiefs in overtime. Probably should have gone for 2 to try to win that game on that Monday night affair. So I think in their mind, at least they know that they can compete with these teams and that they have a chance to win at the end of the day. I'm going to make a case for a couple of the other teams. I'm not believing that they can actually even win a game, but I'll make a case why they could win a game or even 2 games, and then you can tell me what you think about that, and then we'll get into the matchups. But the one team I'll pick out is Green Bay, who does play Philadelphia. And although they've looked very sluggish on offense and a little bit of a question mark with the Jordan Love elbow and the injury there. And then, of course, there's no Christian Watson. At the end of the day, they still have weapons, but I think I like them for the other reason. And I think that's because of their defense. Their defense, I think, at the end of the day, can keep them in games. And then even if Love and the offense is off, which we've seen in the regular season, they are still right there. It's not like they're getting blown out. They're still playing good enough to be within a score or so. And the fact that Philadelphia can lay duds at time on offense, and mainly that's when Hurts has a bad game and A.J. Brown's yelling at him that he's not getting the ball. I can't rule out that Philadelphia is going to give you that effort at some point. Just because you got to think these good defenses are going to try to take away Barkley, and then if you can beat us through the air, Jalen Hurts, that's how it's going to have to be. And I'm not convinced that he can do that at the end of the day. So I'll make a case for Green Bay defensively, and I'll give a little hint. I think I like the actual under in this game Sunday, but we'll get to that on the show for tomorrow when we talk about that game. But defensively, I think the Packers keep them in this potentially till the end.
Yeah, I agree with you defensively, Green Bay is good, is solid. I don't think they're as good as Philly defensively. But to me, it comes down to the quarterback. And I mean, Love to me just doesn't look like he's the type of quarterback that's going to win playoff games for you. I mean, he's a risk taker. He throws the ball a lot down the field. You know, that requires a good protection. And as you start playing some of these better teams with the better pass rushes, I don't think he'll have that kind of a time to throw the ball. I just think, you know, this seems to, you know, to be the case almost every year. You get down to these big games and the team with the better quarterback wins. I think Green Bay loses that matchup, certainly to Philadelphia. And the way Detroit plays, I think that, you know, come playoff time, you'd rather have Goff style than Love style. You know, Tampa is going to have an edge at quarterback when they play in, you know, that kind of game. So I don't know. And Green Bay, I'd give them a lot better chance of advancing if they drew anybody else in this first round other than Philly.
Right. Okay. I'll give you Washington in the sense that, and I get it, this is the classic veteran team who's been there. They know how to win a playoff game against the team who should just be happy to get there. You know, they you know, your first time in, you got to kind of take your lumps. And then, you know what, Washington, maybe you win a game next year, you know, get a little bit better and more improved once you add a few more players to your team. But the Tampa Bay defense, we mentioned on weeks before, is sketchy. I mean, they let Spencer Rattler put up some points on them in the first half last week. So if Spencer Rattler can actually put up points, what does a carefree, I have nothing, you know, nothing to lose. We're playing with a house money type of team with a good quarterback, Jaden Daniels. I think this gives Washington a fair shot. And when you get that kind of team who believes in themselves, kind of has a little bit of mojo going, they actually know how to win close games. Even when they play down to their competition, again, we'll bring up the Saints again. They beat them at the end, barely beating the Cowboys last week, but they pull it out at the end of the day. I mean, Trey Lance looked like Joe Montana in that game somehow. So a team like Washington, good quarterback, rookie, house money. We have nothing to lose. We can outscore Baker in a bad defense. Maybe we get a turnover or two. And then, you know what? We have nothing else to lose here. Let's go up to Detroit and air this thing out all over the place and see what happens there. Sounds stupid, sounds lame, but we've seen it before with teams like Jacksonville and Mark Brunell beating the Broncos when they had no shot. I could give Washington a little bit of a chance here. First year in the playoffs. You know, let's get by this first one with a win. Then who knows what happens.
I agree with you. I think they could not have gotten a better matchup. And because Tampa, like I said about Detroit earlier, Tampa's defense will keep you in the game. You know, if you have a good offensive game, you know, you can match points with Tampa, and Tampa's going to give you that opportunity. The difference between these two teams, as you mentioned, one team's got this veteran quarterback who seems to find a way to win, and this other team has a completely unproven quarterback. And we'll see how he responds on the road. You know, in his first playoff game. I mean, I think he's good enough to put up big points in this game. I'd be shocked if this game weren't high scoring. So yeah, I mean, I think Washington would have a chance to win this game. You get a break here or there, then you know because they're, you know, it's, you know, they're going to be able to put up points, and I just think that in the end, give me the veteran quarterback,
right.
the guy having a great season over the young guy whose better days are ahead of him.
34-31. That'd be a fun game for Sunday night. Okay, let's do it. Let's get to the games, and we'll do the Saturday slate. I'll cut the tape, and then we'll do the Sunday games, 4 in a row in succession after that. All right, first game on the board, and you can make all the jokes that you want. We've all heard them a million times at this point. It's about the Houston Texans drawing a 4:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time slot, which is, of course, the one which is likely to have the worst ratings. They put the least interesting team in every year, and here you go with the Texans and the Chargers. They add to that fact with their kind of identity, I can say, there's a supposed identity of being that rushing team, defensive-minded, kind of like a Michigan Wolverine-oriented Jim Harbaugh football team. Although I think they're a little bit more dynamic than that just because Justin Herbert's numbers say so. But the Chargers are a 3-point favorite here as a wild card, 42.5 against the Texans. And last year, I think at this time, I was all about the Cleveland Browns going down into a struggling Houston Texans stadium and coming out with a victory where Houston basically just whooped their butt from the get-go. And Houston has been very good in this scenario. And as an underdog at home, you got to think that they have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, not as the favorite in this football game as well. It almost seems like the NFL gods would want Jim Harbaugh to win his first playoff game here on the road. So a team like Houston would make perfect sense to do so. I think this is a good game, actually, at the end of the day. I think this is basically a coin flip. I think, to me, I can make a case for both of these teams to win. Yes, I get it. Houston has been struggling down the stretch here, but I think you're going to get a good offensive effort. I think the difference in the end of the day, though, will be probably right there in the trenches where protection will probably break down a little bit for Stroud. I'm going to give the Chargers and Herbert I think I'm going to give them the green light to win this game. Tougher to handicap. I think they're just better in the trenches. The running game has not been super for the Chargers. We'll see if Dobbins can pick it up here a little bit. Joe Mixon has kind of regressed himself, and you had a great call last week with Dameon Pierce getting a touchdown. I could even see Pierce at long odds getting a touchdown in this game. I think this game is probably higher scoring. Somehow you would think it would be a lower scoring game on paper, but again, Herbert's come out. He's come out with some good offensive performances here in the last few weeks, and he's as hot as anybody. And I'll take him over a good Houston defense if our boy Quentin Johnston can break free. Disley's there over the middle. They got the second tight end now with Smart. Maybe fling the ball to Dobbins out of the backfield a little bit. Houston would be wise to get Mixon involved, at least back in the passing game. I think this game gets over. I'm not saying it's a super shootout, but I could see this being a 24-21 type of game, 27-24. And I think somehow Harbaugh and Herbert just kind of pull it out at the end of the day. All right, so what do you got?
Well, I'm surprised that the Chargers are favored in this game. I mean, I do.
It is surprising. I get it. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Houston, has not played well down the stretch, but Houston's a better team than the Chargers. Yeah, they're hurting, with their wide receivers, and no doubt about that, and that's hurt them. But that just means they're going to have to run the ball more in this game. I don't see the Chargers. I mean, the Chargers are no great shakes with their wideouts either. So I can't imagine this is going to be a big time, passing fest. I think Houston big advantage in this game is going to be they'll have the ability to run the ball where the Chargers won't, and Houston will be at home. I just think that it's going to all fall upon Herbert's shoulders, and he's good enough to make it happen. So I mean, I do think it's going to be a really close game. I do think it could go either way. But I just think that Houston's big advantage here is, and you mentioned him. I mean, Pierce has come on, the last couple of weeks, obviously, especially this last week where he got all the playing time, to demonstrate that he can be a serious weapon come playoff time. Now, they already have a serious running back weapon, come playoff time, but all the better because they're not going to be able to pass the ball effectively in this game. They don't want to put the quarterback in harm's way. Turnover waiting to happen against pass rushes, and Chargers can put it on you if you become one dimensional. But if Houston becomes one dimensional, it's going to be running the ball. I think that you're going to see you're going to see Mixon 20 plus times. You're going to see Pierce at least 10 plus times, if not 15. I really think that they're going to try to grind this thing out, and I think they can do that. And like you said, I think that I like to see the numbers, but I think Pierce has I'd say at least a 50-50 shot to score a touchdown in this game. I think his numbers are going to be better than what they're projected to be. And on the other end, like I said, it comes down to Herbert, and where I think he might make his mark in this game, as we see so many times with the star quality quarterbacks, you see this with Mahomes all the time, you see this a lot with Allen, is he's going to have to keep drives alive by running the ball himself. He's a good athlete. He does run the ball effectively at times. I think that, a number I'd like to look at in this game is what's his rushing total projections. Because if the Chargers are going to win this game, because they can't run the ball against Houston. And I mean, I think their best running weapon is going to be Herbert on scrambles. I can easily see him, running 5 or 6 times or into the 20 yards, maybe even 30. So that, I don't, that doesn't necessarily equate to a high scoring game, but, I don't see it being, super low scoring either. So I can see this being a 20-17, 21-20 kind of game. And it could go either way, but I would pick Houston to win if I had to pick.
Yeah, it's a tough game to handicap. Okay, Dameon Pierce, 15-1 for a touchdown.
Wow, where do you sign up for that?
Well, we can do it right here because I have $100 free play I got to do on this and the next game. So Dameon Pierce, 15-1. Justin Herbert for 20 yards, 20 and a half yards is minus 113. 25 yards is at plus 132.
I'm not worried about the price there. I take the lower number. And I was looking up some research on Herbert running. He's got 4 or more rushes 11 times this year. You don't really think of him as a running quarterback, even though he's a good athlete. And also, if you look at his season, tends to run more in the more important games, and that makes sense.
Yep.
When he's under more pressure or doesn't want, he's been instructed, don't throw the ball, to the other team, be conservative, run and get that 6 yards on 3rd and 5 rather than having to throw the ball 20 yards down the field. So, I mean, I can see him once again rushing 4, 5, 6 times, and if he does, and to get to 20 yards, it's basically just one nice run. Give me one 10-yarder in there and mix in a couple of 3 and 4 yarders. Next thing you know, you're in the mid-20s. So, I'd take that, and I'd certainly look at Pierce. I'd definitely take Pierce somehow with that touchdown. But even I'd look at his yardage as well to see what are they posting anything for him?
Nothing for him on the yards, which Let's see here. Maybe on the longest rushing attempt we can get him. Nope.
So, but that would be my two.
Closer to game time, maybe we'll get him.
That'd be my two plays in this game. Herbert over his rushing total, over the 20.5, and we'll throw Pierce on a TD ticket.
Well, right. If I do these two together, 25 to 1 odds on this $100 free play.
So let's look at the second game before we start putting.
Before we hit the confirm button, I got you. Okay, 10-4. Let's see here. Underdog receiver, perhaps. Anyone in mind? We saw someone like Shark get involved last week, 12.5 yards. Obviously, Herbert's going to have to throw the ball more. Dobbins is 10.5 yards. Disley's 29.5. Any of those tickle your fancy? I can see taking a stab at Shark over 12.5.
I wouldn't want to get involved in the receiving and passing in this game, just because, like I said, I certainly wouldn't want anybody from Houston, because this could be a game where they run the ball 40 times and they throw 18 passes, and so I just don't think the quantity is going to be there for Houston's passing game, and at the same time, I don't know. I just don't trust the Chargers passing game on the road against a pretty good defensive team, and they spread the ball around fairly well. They don't really they don't have a go-to guy like some of these top playoff teams do. So I'm going to pass on the passing aspect.
Okay, all right. Underdogs have done very well in the wild card round here since 2017. Okay, the night game. Let's see if we have an underdog live here. We just saw this game a couple weeks ago, and I was saying the whole time I have no idea how the Ravens are this big of a favorite over Pittsburgh, unless they're going to cover that number easily. And that's exactly what happened. And it's almost like the sportsbook was begging you to take Pittsburgh. You almost have that same feeling now. 9.5 for the Ravens, 43.5. Again, it's Russell Wilson for me. I've jumped on the, I went ahead and gave the Steelers a fighting chance last week to rebound to get things right. They didn't do so. Now they're on the road here at Baltimore as they have officially fumbled that division away at the last second. So nothing's trending right for them. Tough spot here with the Ravens, who have bigger aspirations for sure than just beating the Steelers. And maybe they shouldn't. Maybe that could be their fatal flaw, that they do overlook the Steelers somehow in this game. But I just don't see how Pittsburgh wins this game. Maybe they keep it close. I think there's way more firepower offensively for the Ravens than a good Steeler defense can stop. Pittsburgh did beat them earlier in the season, but that was up in Pittsburgh, and Baltimore is doing things like turning the ball over and things that will lose you a game no matter who you are. So as long as they play mistake-free, don't do things stupidly, which they can. I mean, they've done bad in divisional rounds as well. It's just on the AFC Championship when Lamar has a dud. He's definitely done that in the divisional or wild card round before. So I'll trust the Ravens here. Better offense. They got Marlon Humphrey back here, which I think helps their defense tremendously. He's had a couple of turnovers since he's been back. He's just one of those players that you're like, okay, Marlon Humphrey. All right, I hear his name, Marlon Humphrey. Yeah. But then he actually comes back from being hurt, and the defense looks way better than they did without him. So maybe a transcending player a little bit for Baltimore, the veteran on that side of the ball. Pittsburgh, again, I think just kind of limited offensively here. And I think Russell Wilson, at the end of the day, yeah, I mean, this has been a long season for the Steelers. It's been a stressful one, and it's kind of caved in a little bit here at the end. I don't think it gets any better here in Baltimore. So give me the Ravens. Maybe Pittsburgh covers the spread. It's too many points. So I'll probably look at the Ravens team points just because that offense has been able to set that standard about at least going over their points no matter what by themselves. That is at 27.5. I think they get to 28 at the end of the day. I'm not too worried about that. So if I have a best play here, give me the Ravens total team points over 27.5, and I think they advance past Pittsburgh. What do you think?
I'm concerned about the Ravens' history at this level. This is not a good team to be going up against at this point. I mean, you would expect Pittsburgh, at playoff time to be at their best because of their experience, because of all the times that they played Jackson and played Baltimore, and you. At the same time, you don't expect Baltimore to be at their best come playoff time. So while I agree with a lot of what you said, if you look at these two teams, you ask yourself, well, why isn't the line 21 in this game? Because Pittsburgh's terrible and Baltimore's really rolling along. Well, history tells us that this game will probably be closer than you think. If you look at the two games that they played this year, coincidentally, Jackson had exactly 207 passing yards in each game, only 207, and you got no Flowers anymore. That's a huge blow for Baltimore. I mean, now Baltimore has no number one receiver. So, instead of Bateman sneaking behind the defense,
right.
It's focusing on Flowers. Now Bateman's the guy that's getting all the coverage. And who becomes their secondary receiver? They really don't have one. I think there's going to be a lot of throwing to Andrews.
Likely, likely too.
Come on, I mean, I think he's got TDs in last six games, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
And he's going. You got to believe he's good, especially in a tight situation of a playoffs. They can throw the ball conservatively and get the ball to him. He's really come on strong late in the year. I mean, he could be the difference maker in this game. Normally, you would say that Henry might be that guy, but Pittsburgh's done a decent, job against Henry. Again, you playoff time. I don't think a team is going to overpower Pittsburgh with their running game. I think it's going to come down to Jackson having to do things, and that hasn't really worked out. And he had an interception against Pittsburgh in both games they played this year. Pittsburgh's had interceptions in 10 of their last 13 games. They are, the type of team that you would project would cause problems for Jackson in this game. I find it hard to believe that Pittsburgh could possibly win this game with Wilson at quarterback. But they do have kind of what I talked about in the Houston game. They do have a really good running game that could help. If they can get their two-headed running game going, grind down the clock a little bit, and keep Baltimore's offense off the field. I think that they could hang in there some way, shape, or form if they get that one big turnover, which again you would project that they would. They always do against Baltimore, and then now all of a sudden what appeared to be a 17-3 blowout is 17-10, and now it's tense, and game ends up 20-17 or 20-14 or something. So I think Baltimore, I mean, if they don't win this game, then man, what a waste. They really should win this game. But again, I've just seen this, just play. How many times has this played out where this matchup here? I mean, man, you look at the ugliness of the AFC playoffs, and you say, why can't they be playing Baltimore? I'm talking about the Texans or the Chargers or the Broncos. Why can't they draw one of those teams where you would think they'd have a lot better opportunity to run up a big score. Man, they got to go up against Pittsburgh again. I don't know. I mean, I just can't imagine that they're going into this game with a really comfortable feeling, even though they're clearly the better team. So, I do think there are some interesting props here in this game, and it starts with Andrews. I got to believe that, he's got a good chance for a touchdown. He's got a real good chance to go over his receiving numbers. And on Pittsburgh's end, I'd take a shot that, will Jackson throw an interception? I mean, I don't know what the number's going to say, but if it's a pick 'em, I would definitely say yes on that. And one other thing that I would look at, and you kind of mentioned it, is this is, Pittsburgh's passing game is terrible. And they can't get guys open. Wilson's going to be under a lot of pressure, and when he's under a lot of pressure, he tends to run the ball a lot. And so I think he's. In fact, the last 2 weeks, and in big games with that they needed to win, he ran the ball a total of 10 times against Kansas City and Cincinnati. So I think you're looking at him, running the ball, 5 to 7 times in this game. You got a reasonable running total for him, somewhat similar to what you had for Herbert. I think this is going to be a very important way for Pittsburgh to keep drives alive, for him to run to the chain, 3 or 4 different times over the course of the day. So, those would be my angles in this game.
All right, Russell Wilson, 14.5 for his baseline rushing yards. And you're right.
Yeah,
you
that's low.
For all the viewers and listeners out there, and if you're trying to apply NFL to gambling and make a wager, Dave just said it. You can't underestimate the amount of, how much the playoffs matter in terms of a quarterback wanting to succeed and rushing the football in order to do so. It is really amplified here with these important games. So you will see quarterbacks take off a lot more often than you would in a regular season scenario. The touchdown prop for Mark Andrews is plus 145. Over under receiving yards, 45.5.
I think both of those are reasonable.
Right.
And I agree with what you said, by the way, about the quarterbacks. Very well stated. Is that this is, you've got these franchise quarterbacks. You don't want to put them in harm's way. Why is that the case? Because you want them healthy come playoff time. Well, we're at playoff time. So throw out the caution. We need these guys to perform. And there's so much pressure in the playoffs on don't make a mistake. Don't throw it into coverage. You don't see a guy open, check down to somebody else or run it yourself. And these guys, like Herbert, like Wilson, who, they don't got great check downs. They're good athletes. They know they're smart. They're veterans. They know where the chains are. They know they can get that 6 yards on 3rd and 5 by running it rather than, trying to throw it to a back or something and come up short. And so, and they, like you said, this isn't a game to slide. This is a game to go for that first down, dive for the first down, take it upon yourself. These quarterbacks, this is why they earn the big bucks. And it's not just by winging the ball down the field. It's by winning. We see this, time and time again with Mahomes, come playoff time. Says, we got him in 3rd and 8. This is great. Oh, he's back to pass. Nobody's open. No, this is great. We got to stop him. And he scrambles and he gains 8.5 yards. and like, oh my God, we had them, and how many times does this happen? But the quarterbacks realize they're the most important guys on the field. They've got to make it happen. And sometimes that's with your arm, sometimes that's with your legs. And you don't take these kind of chances in the regular season, but come playoff time, you do. And so I think that gives you an opportunity here when a lot of these playoff numbers are predicated upon, well, how'd they do in the regular season? Wilson only averaged, 14 rushing yards a game in the regular season. Let's put his number at 14. Well, this is not the regular season anymore. So I think the quarterbacks, if you took every quarterback rushing over this weekend, you come out a winner.
Probably the landmark moment in quarterback rushing history time in the playoffs. Can you think of the time that I'm thinking about?
Yes. Colin Kaepernick.
Oh, is that the one?
No, you're not thinking of
that. I'm going further back, way further back. To the point where everyone in the same room looked at each other and said, oh, this guy wants to win. It was
Elway.
Yeah, exactly.
Elway's touchdown.
Yep, Elway. Yep. I don't even think he scored. I think he got helicopter tackled at the 4-yard line or something like that, maybe.
Well, didn't Kaepernick rush for over 100 yards?
Yeah, he probably did.
Game against Green Bay.
Yeah, probably did. Yep.
His signature moment. Anyway, but that's that's playoff time. Whatever sport it is, baseball. You want that ace pitcher on the mound come big game. Basketball, where the ball's going. 3 minutes to go, game tied. It all comes down to LeBron, and Curry or whatever. And football, like I said, it's great when you have a team with a great quarterback and great receivers, and you don't have to really worry about the quarterback scrambling or doing what. But when you're talking about Pittsburgh, you're talking about the Chargers. You even make the same case for the Texans this week with their receivers that are all injured. The quarterback has to know going into this game that he's going to need to run for 3 or 4 of those key first downs, keep the drive alive rather than punting. And there's nothing more demoralizing for a defense that, we've held them on the first 2 downs. We've covered all the receivers on 3rd down. Where's the punt team? And next thing you know, oh boy, there goes the quarterback and gets the first down by 1 yard. And the drive continues, and we got to do this all over again. So I think that this is the time. This is why they get the big bucks. This is the time for the quarterbacks to shine.
Okay, so right now I have on the primary ticket for the Saturday games alone, Mark Andrews anytime touchdown, Russell Wilson over 14.5 yards rushing, Mark Andrews over 45.5 yards receiving. Justin Herbert over 20.5 yards rushing. They won't let me parlay the Lamar interception, so I'll leave that off.
What is that number?
That is actually plus 120. So on a nice straight play, you can play that, and you're getting plus money back for a Lamar pick.
Yeah, well, like I said,
it's usually a minus number. Usually a minus number.
Yeah, well, he's had one each of the 2 previous games against Pittsburgh, and against most other teams in the league, I wouldn't be as confident in this, but Pittsburgh, their defense finds a way in these big games to keep them in the game somehow, or whether it's forcing a fumble or forcing an interception, whatever it is, they always seem to find a way to keep their bad offense in the game. And so you're telling me that there's you make money by predicting that there's going to be one interception. Well, then I'll take it.
Okay, so without getting greedy, I'll leave off the Dameon Pierce touchdown. Because honestly, if I put him with these four, that's now going to pay 100 to win 15,000. Without him, it's 10 to 1. So 100 to win 1,000. But what I can do is kind of greedy some of this other stuff up and put that like on a profit booster and get like 30% more and get a nice little payout if I get greedy with, let's just say Herbert to get 25 yards instead of 20 and a half. Maybe Russell to get 25 rushing yards. All that with Pierce, Andrews touchdown, and maybe Andrews over 50 yards will be a cheaper bet, but we'll pay a lot if I use that 30%er. So good way to do that. I'll take the four basic ones here, and then I'll get greedy with the Dameon Pierce and some of the numbers in this primary ticket. Make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So that's what we'll do. Sweat token applied. There we go. Free bet to win 1,000. What can you say at the end of the day? All right, Dave. Anything else for these two games?
No, I mean, you mentioned the fact that they're putting the Chargers and Texans in the least glamorous position of the week, but you can make the same case for every AFC game this weekend. There's nothing exciting to me about the AFC games this weekend. Now, that doesn't mean the games won't be close, especially the Chargers game against the Texans, but you could easily put the Broncos and Bills in that first slot game that, oh man, this could be a really terrible game. The Ravens and Steelers, while they're bigger name teams and you'd want them in a more popular spot, I understand that, still has the potential to be a really bad game. We've been there, done that with these teams, and we really want to see this again. So, I mean, while you might say the Chargers and Texans were an easy choice for that least glamorous spot, you could certainly make a case for either one of these other two games as well.
It's kind of interesting that all three AFC games, and I haven't thought about it until now, you were playing all the AFC games first and then all the NFC games after that.
Well, I mean, again, no coincidence that, your bigger audiences are as you go farther into the weekend. The NFC matchups are really good, and the AFC matchups are really ugly.
Okay. All right. I think that'll probably give us a hint for the Bills game tomorrow. So let's cut the tape, and we'll reboot and do the Sunday show. All right. Thanks, Dave Del Grande. That was awesome. We appreciate it, as always, and we'll reboot you for tomorrow at, let's see, if I start a show tomorrow at 8 a.m. Eastern, which we'll start an hour later than usual. Just notate that. So 8 a.m. Eastern tomorrow is when we'll start, and Dave Del Grande will cue on sometime about 8:30 Eastern, 5:30 Pacific. You Pacific coasters really kind of get us a little too early, probably. I wonder what time the average tune in on the West Coast would be. Probably right about when we're doing the full slate of games, around 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 Pacific. So what we'll do now, and we'll get Nephew Dave aboard here in a second. We'll look at both of these games in depth. What we have on the screen now are some tickets, and I'll kind of just go over a few of those. And this will be the art of making tickets for this afternoon. We'll go ahead and build one with you guys tomorrow, or build two. But this is just an example of some of the things that you can do that's kind of off the wall and different. And the one right now we have up on here, and I was trying to think of randomness kind of the whole time too. But this kind of gives you some fun rooting interest. And this is a 5-pick round robin in which we need to hit 3 out of the 5 of these for a nice little payout. So we don't even have to hit all 5. All 5 is a jackpot. 4 out of the 5 is a great payday, and 3 out of the 5 is a nice little winning afternoon all by itself. So the first one we have on, and that's going to be a focus on the night game with the Ravens and the Steelers. It's a simple handicap. It's Mark Andrews and George Pickens both for 25 yards receiving. So you're just asking for 50 yards receiving each, which they may or may not get there. But chances are hopefully you divide that right down the middle. So 25 yards receiving in each half pays 16-1. That's just kind of interesting to me because you got to know Pickens has to be the target for Wilson. Andrews has to be the target for Lamar. So these guys should be decisively and deliberately fed the football. So even on a straight up bet, that's a nice little fun way to do things. And that's one I might have to bet. Basically straight up at 16-1 is Pickens and Andrews 25 yards each in the first half and the second half. We went ahead and threw Bo Nix on this ticket as well. He is 8-1 to throw for 325 yards against the Bills. He can throw for that. He has the capability. He has plenty. And the reason why this is always live is he has speedsters. I mean, he has a ton of speed at receiver. Guys we don't even know about. Talking about Troy Franklin, for one. He never even catches the ball, but he went to college with Nix. If they could ever get on the same page together, even as a fourth wide receiver, I mean, he's a super speedster. So is Mims. Valet is a very good receiver. You have Sutton. You still have the tight ends you can use. The big guys up the middle, if you even throw it to them. But this is a dynamic type of offense for Denver. And for 325 and what could be kind of a shootout anyway, you take a chance at 8-1. I mean, and again, this is probably, I don't have the amounts here, but this is probably a 25-cent round robin. Probably costs about $8.50 to do altogether. If you do the parlays of threes, the fours, and the fives together. So, at 8-1 odds, you kind of throw Bo Nix out there, and you now have that parlay to 16-1. I mean, you're talking about big numbers getting paid off of a quarter if these things were to happen. And on the flip side of the Nix, you got Josh Allen at 300+ yards. If Bo Nix makes this an all-out shootout, what can Josh Allen perhaps do? The same thing. Maybe you dumb down his numbers because, of course, he likes to run it maybe a little more. Although both of these quarterbacks to rush for 50 and to pass for 300 is probably an interesting bet altogether amongst itself. But Allen for 300 yards passing is live. Same with Jaden Daniels. That's something he can do at plus 640 against a Buccaneers defense that can get scorched overall. So that's just an interesting play altogether. And then we threw in the Dameon Pierce anytime touchdown. He ripped off that 92-yarder last week. Pay it off. So just interesting philosophies. These are obviously all long shots, but things that definitely can happen at a bigger price. I don't think you're asking too much out of the universe to get George Pickens and Mark Andrews to have 25 receiving yards and a half for the duration of one football game at 16-1 odds. I mean, that's still pretty nice. The parlay for those two guys to get 50 yards, probably just for the game, straight up, is only going to pay like 2.5-1. All you're telling me is I need to split that same amount that they're likely to get anyway, and just make sure it happens in either the first half and the second half. Again, it's one of those, and we'll bring Nephew Dave on. Good morning, David. How are you? I don't know if you've been listening to what I've been saying, but it reminds me of your field goal touchdown bet, one team to get it in each half. It just looks so easy, but man, is it hard to get.
Yeah, definitely is one of those bets because, one of them guys will probably screw it up. But they're worth playing. Again, you mentioned they look so easy and appetizing, and yet they're just so far away. But I think you have to play it. With those two, I agree with everything you said. There's no reason that they shouldn't be able to do that.
And then with moving on and just looking at a little bit more of just the art of making a ticket for this Saturday. We'll flash one more on here. This is our typical 2-touchdown score ticket. We'll throw Dobbins in there and Lamar Jackson. Or, do we expect these guys to get 2? Not actually really, but
I would think so.
They can. So they're on the list of suspects. So we include them. And here's the thing you need to know about scoring. I talked about it with Dave Del Grande. You're running your quarterback rushing yards are emphasized a lot more in the playoff type of atmosphere. You're definitely going to get a lot more quarterbacks running the ball. So that's going to help your quarterback touchdown props here for one. But another thing to kind of know about this is that it doesn't matter how you score. You just need to score in the playoffs. And that could be by any sneaky means necessary. So that will bring to life some people that you normally would not think would be scorers. And in fact, for Buffalo last year in the playoffs, it was Shakir who kind of came out of nowhere and lit it up in the playoffs to score a few times. And we'll see who does that today. I got a first touchdown of random player ticket. We'll look at it in a minute. But just for the sake of this, Dobbins and Jackson, of course, they're live for 2, Dave. Like you said, Josh Allen, live for 2, right?
Absolutely, always.
Josh Jacobs, live for 2, right?
A big part of that offense, absolutely.
Jaden Daniels, your guy, playoff game. We talked about quarterbacks running the ball a little bit more with emphasis. Jaden Daniels for 2, right? He's on the list.
Absolutely. I mean, it's part of their game anyway, and they're going to need him to step up and use his legs. So, I mean, that's live too, I think.
And we'll take the long shot, and this one makes sense. And we want to this is one of our big winning Thursdays that we had on the season, and I'm talking about with DeMarcus Robinson for 2. This was against the Vikings, and the reason why we like it in that aspect is that Kupp and Nakua will get the best coverage. So now you're kind of maybe getting a little bit of a match with guys like Robinson or Higbee on Viking defenders who are not at the top of the depth chart of the cornerbacks or the safeties. If the Rams can spread it around and take advantage of a big receiver like DeMarcus Robinson, then he's quite capable of scoring 2, especially when Kupp and Nakua are soaking up the coverage. Right, Dave?
Absolutely. I mean, we've seen him do it. So, I mean, if we usually talk about the madness in the regular season. I mean, this is a ringer of madness here. This is a good 2-touchdown ticket.
Yeah, these would all mainly be ringers for the most part. Jefferson is, of course, you could throw him in there, Addison, or someone like that. Now this ticket is a long shot, probably never happens, but man, you never know. And you put it on the same premise as I just said, Dave, is that you score by any means necessary to get in the playoffs. And that could be sneakily, very sneakily. We'll throw DJ Shark on there just because Herbert's been passing. He's been getting touchdowns through the air, and he got Shark involved last week, who's been injured for most of the year. He's not the worst receiver when healthy. He does get touchdowns, and he could be someone who's very under the radar in this Houston Charger game to score. So DJ Shark for a first touchdown, 19-1. And then obviously when you think it's going to go to Henry or Lamar, what do? You throw Patrick Ricard out there in the flats, Dave, and throw the fullback screen pass. And you get him into the end zone kind of unexpectedly at 100-1. At 100-1, just worth a first touchdown shot. And then your guy, Jamison Crowder, why not Jameson Crowder for the first touchdown, right? He can score. He scores at opportune times. And to set the table, he's very live to get a touchdown first, I would say.
Yeah, you could almost in the sense of first touchdown scores, maybe some kind of a ringer, because he is going to get involved, sneakily, possibly not sneakily. So absolutely, Steven. I mean, look at the wager on that and tell me, why don't you just play something like that? You know what I mean?
I know, right.
If it fails, it's 50 cents, man. Come on. It's so you got to play some tickets like this in playoffs.
And you got to have some fun with it.
I know I have.
And like, if you're driving out there, what the ticket is paying, again, this is 3 players to score a touchdown first. DJ Shark, Patrick Ricard, and Jamison Crowder. 50 cents pays out $76,750. So almost by principle, you have to do it, because you'll feel like a dumbass if it hits. And the other thing is too, Dave, round robin this. So you can hit 2 of these guys. Shoot.
And still get
each
paid.
guy for $1. Straight up, you gotta play each one probably straight up for a hair of money as well. So Ricard, Crowder.
Yeah, I love it, man. Love it. Love tickets like this. It's the playoffs. I mean, you have to.
And other things were flown through. But I mean, just generally speaking, again, running backs and their receive yards, I think, get amplified for more of those in playoff type conditions. Here we go. $20 pays $5,500 on this. This is an Ant-Man special from last night. We threw this together watching the Ohio State game, and he led off the way with it. But it's all these running backs to get 25 yards receiving, and it's Jalen Warren, Justice Hill, who looks like he's back now, and maybe less of Keaton Mitchell. I know you've probably seen Keaton Mitchell on one of my tickets flashing through earlier if you've been watching the screen. We'll stick with it, but it's sketchier for sure now that Justice Hill is back. Joe Mixon, 25 receiving. Javonte Williams, 25 receiving. I think he had close to 50 last week. Saquon Barkley, 25 receiving, and Bucky Irving, 25 receiving. So those 6 backs, Dave, who's the one that screws it up?
I think in this case it would actually probably be Joe Mixon.
Oh, yeah, against San Diego or the Chargers.
Believe it or not.
Calling him San Diego. Yep. Good defense, fast in the front 7. You hopefully get Mixon in the space. He's been as good as any of these running backs to cover that number. But yes, his play as of late, it's concerning. And probably if someone screws this ticket up to me, I got to think it's I think Justice Hill, because he's just not healthy. I think I'll throw him in there. And Javonte Williams, because he'll get counterfeited by other running backs. Because Denver's not so sure what they're doing at running back anyway. All right. What else do you got?
They play like 3 at a time.
Right, exactly. What else might you be looking forward to just going into the playoffs, Dave, overall? Anything?
I think listening to you and Del Grande, I'd have to agree with the game tonight. I think is going to be closer than people might think. Kind of a bad draw for Pittsburgh a little bit, in the sense that Baltimore is about as hot as they can be going into the playoffs, and the defense has gotten better. But divisional game here, I think we see a pretty good one there at 8 o'clock. And I'm excited to see these matchups this weekend, Steve.
All right, let's start there. Steelers and the Ravens. It is 9.5, 43.5. What do you see for a point spread on that?
I gotta think Pittsburgh can cover it. The thing is can they help that defense out? They're going to have to, or else they're going to wear them down, and then they might not be able to cover that spread. So they're going to have to try and keep up at least somewhat offensively if this is going to be covered.
What does your sports book say for the number?
I have 9.5.
And you have 43.5 as well?
Yep.
I'm gonna take the Ravens team points here. I get it. Pittsburgh has a good defense. I know Zay Flowers is hurt, but we've seen this team score a ton of points all season long, and even when they kind of slow things down and slow tempo down, they still seem to get 31 points anyway. They didn't get there a few times, but I think I'll take a shot here with the Ravens total points and not worry about the spread, just in case Pittsburgh can get off. And I'll say this, the more Pittsburgh can score, the more it's going to drive the Ravens score up as well, I think. So I think this game has a sneaky, I want to go under cold weather. It sounds like it. Ravens, Steelers, 13-10 playoff game, slugfest. But it's not like the Ravens defense has been the greatest all season. Yes, better with Humphrey back. They get more turnovers here as of late. So, yes, you like the way that they're trending. But is there a path for the Steelers to actually get some points in this game? Yeah, sure. Why not? And get to 21, 24? Yeah, sure. Why not? So if that happens, I think the Ravens, and they need to play mistake-free. Don't get me wrong here. Will get driven to their point total themselves. It's plus 102 for over 27.5. I think they get to 31. I think that's the magic number at the end of the day. That's the number I took on one of my, 5-game across the weekend Ohio State parlay type of plays. I think I have the Ravens over 30.5, plus 164. Not going to be the easiest thing to get to against the Steeler defense, but I think that they can, and I think that the Steelers will drive up that score a little bit. So I think we get a sneaky over in this game. Lamar Jackson's 218.5 passing. Russell Wilson 209.5. I think we get Russell to throw over. Man, he's been disappointing. I called it too, though, Dave. I said right when they were doing okay, I'm like, all right, this might be the time Pittsburgh starts to fade here. I bet against them on Christmas. They got me to take them. I talked myself into it last week with Cincinnati, and they did not do good for me. They were rather disappointing last weekend for me. But I'm going to give them one last chance here, and I think it's because what you said and what we've been saying is this is just a divisional rivalry game. You got to be up for this. So I'm going to look more points that will not points. I know I get it. It's hard, a tough pill to swallow, but I'll look for over the total. I'll look for the Ravens to score their points as well. Pittsburgh for their team points. Let me go ahead and cue that up. And let's see where they're at. I'm going to guess they're like 17.5 or something. They might be the one to bet the points over with, to be honest. Let's see where we're at. 16.5. I think that's a very achievable number. In fact, you will get a nice price if you want to dumb some things down here. A Pittsburgh alternate total of over 13.5 is minus 188. So, if you like some like hockey favorites at minus 180, if you today, or you like some other football games where you can like maybe take the Tampa Commander over under down to 46, 45 or something like that, a minus 205. These are the kind of things you can parlay together 4 or 5 times and come out with a nice little payday at the end of the day. So over 13.5 Steeler points, Dave, I think they get to 14, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah. And if you can take them, for 3 touchdowns somehow, 21 points, Steve, over 20.5 is at plus 190. And I'm loving that right now. I think that I'm going to play that somewhere.
Yeah, okay. Over 20.5, you get near 2-1 odds. In fact, I do see plus 200 on my end. So there's interesting ways to play this game like that. Russell Wilson for his alternate passing yards is at 300 yards for Russell Wilson passing is plus 680 today. 250 yards is at plus 225. That's not the worst number in the universe. Lamar Jackson for his passing, and Lamar can light it up at times. Plus 580 for 300 or more passing yards. Plus 920 for 325 passing yards for Lamar. Rushing wise, let's look at their touchdowns. Russell Wilson for 3 touchdown passes, 8-1. Dave. Lamar Jackson for 3
that's
is
a
at
huge
plus
number.
300. Yeah, I'm gonna have to throw that in somewhere on some tickets. I can't be fully Raven heavy. You gotta diversify a little bit. You can win all your bets if you just get a higher scoring game, to be honest, and you're kind of betting this kind of way. So Wilson over yards plus touchdowns is something new I'll add on. Always adding new. That's why we do this show. It helps. It's a show for us as much as it is for you guys out there. Let's see. Rushing prop wise, Henry's 99.5. I don't think I want that. Lamar's 49.5. I don't think I want that. Najee's 39.5. Russell Wilson 14.5. Jalen Warren 33.5. Justice Hill now listed at 8.5. I like the Justice Hill over as long as he's going to play and play that role. That is a rushing total that he can get over easily, that 8.5. And Russell Wilson, if he's scrambling, again, we talked about the quarterback legs being a big thing in the playoffs. And Russell Wilson has been, if there's any quarterback who's been amping up the legs and getting yards on the ground every week more and more and more and more, it's been Russell Wilson. So why not here again, just to have him expand on that footwork he's been doing to move the sticks. So I think that's a low number. You like any of those, Dave?
Oh, absolutely. I love the Justice Hill. Remember, a couple weeks ago, we were rooting for that, for 25, and he got it. 25 for him today is at plus 360. I would even look at that.
Yeah, all right. So you have a good alt number on him. Good. I don't see that yet on my side. I do have rushing and receiving for Justice Hill. I got 50 yards at plus 250. I don't want that. I'd rather just have 50 yards receiving and rushing for Justice Hill is at plus 250. 40 yards rushing and receiving is at plus 140. But yet his baseline just for rushing is 8.5. Why wouldn't you just do that? You know?
Right, yeah. I think that's
instead of plus
way.
140 trying to get to 40, why wouldn't you just do the normal straight up thing? All right, so there is some deception in the sports book at times as well. And try to navigate those waters as they usually will have you with some different juice numbers. It's specific too when you're dealing with alternate lines and teams to win by a win margin. All right, if you notice that, a lot of times a team to win by 14 or more is going to pay less than the same team minus 13.5 that you find in a different part of the menu. So know that there can be variances in that kind of juice, and always play the better one. Speaking of win margin bands, try to avoid this team will win by 12 to 17. Just don't do it. Just, make it, they'll win by 11.5 or more if you want to do it that way. Never put yourself in a window where you have to try to dart yourself into the bullseye. You want to be able to land in a variety of spaces, and anything over 11.5 in that scenario is where you want to be instead of inside a band. All right, receiving numbers. Pickens 55.5, Freiermuth 39.5, Mark Andrews, 45.5. Calvin Austin, the third, 25.5. He's been awfully quiet. Najee Harris, 9.5. Bateman, 46.5. Likely, 29.5. Nephew Dave is the OG of Isaiah Likely from recent memory. Last year, right? That's when he emerged, Dave, correct?
Yep.
Jalen Warren, 21.5. Van Jefferson, 10.5. He had a good game against the Ravens the last time out. Anthony pointed out. Derrick Henry is just 4.5. Nelson Aguilar, 18.5. Justice Hill, 19.5. Mike Williams, 10.5. Tylen Wallace, 12.5. He did get involved last week. So a lot of good low numbers on the board receiving wise. What sticks out to you, Dave?
I mean, it has to be Likely at 29.5. That seems super achievable. I think you've got to give that some consideration here.
Plus
yeah,
285
there's a lot of
for 50 or
low-hanging
more.
numbers.
Plus 285 for 50
I
or more.
wouldn't be afraid to. You could popcorn him, as you like to say there.
Yep.
With his yardage. So I love that. Calvin Austin, you got to think he's been quiet. What a better time to make some noise than a playoff game against your division rival.
Right now, Calvin Austin III and Isaiah Likely, both for 50 yards, pays plus 1160. So $10 wins you $116.
Not mad at that.
Yeah. So that's interesting. Let me jot this down. I'm trying to come up with an art of making a ticket with you, or I don't know. Do we do two touchdown madness with 2 games? I guess we do. So let's look at the touchdown scores now.
I guess we could.
Yeah, we'll just do it with 2 games. The touchdown scores are this. Henry's minus 190, which actually is a pretty good price for him. Give it a quarter, and you'll get an even better price in game. Mark Andrews plus 140, Bateman plus 150, Najee Harris plus 185, Lamar plus 220, Pickens plus 250, Likely plus 260, Freiermuth plus 330, Jalen Warren plus 350, Nelson Aguilar plus 410. Calvin Austin III is at plus 500 for a touchdown, Dave. Justice Hill plus 550, Baltimore defense 6-1, Tylen Wallace 7-1, Russell Wilson plus 850, Mike Williams 9-1, Van Jefferson 13-1, Pittsburgh defense 12-1, Cordell Patterson 17-1, Darnell Washington 18-1. Our boy Patrick Ricard now 29-1 for an anytime touchdown, just 1 for him. 2 touchdowns. Henry's plus 290, Mark Andrews 10-1. Bateman's 11-1, Harris 15-1, Lamar Jackson 19-1, Pickens 23-1. There's our man Likely. Let's throw him in touchdown madness, Dave. Right? Isaiah Likely 26-1.
Yep, let's do it.
Freiermuth 30-1, Jalen Warren 34-1, Aguilar 49-1, Baltimore defense 60-1, Calvin Austin 70-1. All right, Justice Hill 70-1. I think you have a lot of good low-hanger numbers in the receiving wise. So I would look at those. I would look at some Russell Wilson rushing yards. I would look at something like Likely and Austin for 50 yards receiving each. I do have the play 16-1 for Mark Andrews and George Pickens, each to have 25 yards in each half. 16-1. These again, if you were just to parlay them for their baselines, which Andrews is 45.5, Pickens 55.5. I mean, that's kind of meaning right at the middle of 50-50 anyway. That's just going to pay almost 2.5-1. Here you are getting 16-1 or 18-1. I forget exactly what it is with those guys. I think it's 18-1 with those guys getting that same workload. They just split it up at halftime, 25 each half. All right, likely for 2-1 touchdown madness. You got anything else on this one, Dave?
Sneaky player to watch out for, I think. Nelson Aguilar today. Keep an eye on him.
Yeah, I agree. Because Zay Flowers is out. The Nelson Aguilar props become very, very live. In fact, his alternate receiving yards, 50 for him is at plus 540. How about that?
Oh, I mean, his numbers are fantastic. Even for a touchdown, he's plus 370 and 45 to 1 for 2. And he could do that with the absence of Zay Flowers. So I think that is the kind of sneaky angle to play here.
So let's do this. These three guys together, I feel like this should pay more. Let me get rid of this. Let's see what it says. Okay, we mentioned likely in Austin is $10 to win $116, right? So if we throw on Nelson Aguilar for 50 yards, now we have $10 paying $773. And if you just want to throw on a fourth, if you want to find another Steeler, might as well just do the rushing prop for, let's say, Justice Hill, right? Justice Hill, just for over 8.5. Now that $10 pays $1,400.
I like that. That's a good ticket.
Yeah, I'm going to put it in right now, just so I got it. Let's see here. Logging on. $10 wins $1,400. All right, and now 2 touchdown madness. Let's throw on Isaiah Likely. Again, let me click him on, and let's pair him up with someone from the other game. All right, yep, the game before that, Chargers and Texans. Dave, just go ahead and give me your thoughts on this one and who's going to win.
So, I actually think the winner here, there's just something about this matchup. I don't like the way Houston went into the playoffs here. I'm going to actually look for the Chargers to stand up with that defense and get a win here on the road. That's just kind of my first thought here is the Chargers pull this one out. Do they get much further than that? I'm not so sure. But, Steve, give me the Chargers today and a little bit of an upset.
I think the football gods want the Chargers. They're the favorite, so it wouldn't be an upset. I think the football gods want Harbaugh to win.
Oh, they are, aren't they? Yep.
In fact, what does your sports book say the number is?
The spread is 3, and the over-under is 41.5.
Okay, that's what I have as well. Because it looks like I have Texans +3 minus 120. So we're on kind of an alert to see if this drops to 2.5 because it looks like a little money coming in on Houston. Houston's been fantastic in this 4:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time window in which we joke about them. That's the only time the NFL anyone will want to watch Houston is, no one's watching is what it is. So let's put the playoff game with Houston on there. They're always the first game. So whatever jokes you have about it, that's that. But I think the football gods want Harbaugh to win a game. I really, really do. And if you look at Justin Herbert, and we talk about the Chargers, you just think, all right, Michigan, running team, good in the trenches, good defense, ball control offense. They've been anything but. Their running game's been suspect. Justin Herbert's been having to put the team on his shoulders, and he's responded as good as anybody. He really, really has. He doesn't turn the ball over too much, an interception here or there. But for the most part, he's been very, very good. He's unrattled. He stands in the face of pressure. He delivers a beautiful football. And you've seen the receivers benefit. McConkey's had fabulous games as a rookie. You've seen Disley emerge as a tight end. We all know his name now. Also, Quentin Johnston, as much as he drops the ball, there's been a couple of games now where he has 2 touchdowns. And he's a player we've been tracking for a couple of seasons now to be a guy to emerge. He'd have wide receiver receiving numbers of 27 and a half and stuff like that. Those days are long gone. I mean, this is a guy who's up in the 50s or 60s now. We'll look at that in a second. But it's been Herbert who has been the breadwinner for the Chargers. And when I look at it on the flip side, and I like Stroud, he was my fantasy quarterback on one of my teams from the get-go, but he regressed. And he regressed under injuries to skill players as well as a trench that just isn't good. They get beat up on the line of scrimmage, and Stroud has been paying the price, facing pressure, not having time, having to run a little bit more than what he's used to. And I think the Chargers bring that same kind of energy today, and that's the difference in the game. It's just simply going to be in the trenches. Herbert, a little bit more of a seasoned veteran quarterback. So for that reason, I do like the Chargers in this game. I was thinking this is going to be close, but the more I'm looking at this, I would not doubt if the Chargers win this game by margin. Honestly, they've been blowing out their opponents the last few weeks, and I get it. There's been bad teams like my Patriots, the Raiders. They get kind of crucified for the weak schedule that they've played. But you know what? They can only beat the teams in front of them. They did play Kansas City tough. Probably should have won that game. But they had, the boinked field goal go in for the Chiefs to beat them at the gun. Again, I just think it's the football gods, Harbaugh, Herbert, and the Chargers are destined to at least go on to the next round, and we'll see who they get. But I think they take out the Texans here. The Texans, they need to draft and get in free agency a much better offensive line than what they have. Put on some more pressure on the quarterback themselves. And I think the Chargers are good to go in this spot. So it's as simple as that, David. Let's see here.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
The Stroud, 231.5. Herbert, 231.5. I think this is a game that can have some points as well. I could see this being 34-17. Something like that. Herbert's alternate numbers, I think he's good for 275 at least, plus 235 there, plus 410 for 300 or more. Stroud is at 300 yards or more, plus 430. I don't love that. I think they're going to try to commit to the run a little bit more and get Mixon going and try to keep you got to have the running game to keep the pressure off of C.J. Stroud. Stroud for 3 touchdown passes, 6-1. Herbert's live for his 3, I think, at plus 430. So I'm going to do some more Herbert props for today as well when I sit down and start looking at these things. Probably play a basketball game just to keep me busy for the next couple of hours after this show ends. Let's see. Herbert also for rushing. Let's look at those now. Dave Del Grande likes Herbert for rushing. He's 21.5. Stroud is just at 12.5. Again, the quarterback legs are emphasized here. And honestly, CJ Stroud could be running as much as any quarterback today. Dave, 40 yards for Stroud is at plus 1260. What do you think about that?
Oh man, I think that's worth a play for sure.
Like
you mentioned, he's going to be under some pressure.
If you put him to like an Aguilar ticket at a big number, maybe tie him in with some Wilson rushing yards. I mean, any number of things are going to blow up your $10 into a big payout. So Stroud for 40, Stroud for 25 is plus 360. So that's good. Looks like we have Gus Edwards back as well. He has a baseline 21.5. Dobbins 57.5. Mixon 71.5. Herbert's alternate rushing 25 for him is plus 122. 40 for him is plus 420. I would be fine with the 25. I don't know if I want to push it to 40 with him. Herbert for 50 yards is plus 820. 60 yards is 13-1. In what world does Justin Herbert pay the same amount as CJ Stroud and he gets 20 more yards rushing? That doesn't make sense to me. Receiving wise, our low hangers are going to be this. Man, we have Deontay Johnson at 14.5. Xavier Hutchinson is just 6.5. Robert Woods is just 11.5. You're talking about all guys who are going to get the ball probably because we're missing Tank Dell. Mechie is just 23.5. GJ Shark is just 10.5. Touchdown last week for him. Dobbins is just 11.5. He's quite capable of getting it out of the backfield. Mixon 20.5. Disley 31.5. Dalton Schultz 32.5. Quentin Johnston 45.5. Ladd McConkey 75.5. Nico Collins 87.5. And on the alternates, let's see, Mechie plus 260 for 40 yards. Man, I'd love to have an alternate on like Hutchinson. Maybe you do, Dave. Do you have like Hutchinson or Deontay Johnson alternate yards? DJ Shark maybe as well?
I have Hutchinson. My only option available would be 25 would be plus 450.
That's a great number. What do you have DJ Shark?
Yes, 25 for him would be plus 240.
Again, this is a guy we haven't heard from him, but he's been hurt, and he gets into the act last week with a touchdown. So again, it's these kind of guys who kind of step out of nowhere that are going to be your breadwinners in these type of playoff games. All right, interesting numbers there. And then anytime touchdown for this one. Again, you're going to get some good numbers on some guys in a game that could have some points. Mixon minus 130, Dobbins plus 130, McConkey plus 145, Quentin Johnston plus 220, Schultz plus 320, Edwards plus 380, Disley 4-1, DJ Shark plus 470, Herbert 5-1, Mechie 5-1, the Chargers defense plus 850, Hutchinson plus 850, Robert Woods plus 950, Stroud 10-1 is an interesting one. Stone Smart 11-1 is very live to score. Darius Davis 10-1, Deontay Johnson 11-1, Kabini Vidal 14-1, Tucker Fisk, our guy, 18-1, and then 2 touchdowns. Mixon's 5-1, Dobbins 9-1, Nico Collins 10-1, McConkey 11-1, Quentin Johnston 20-1, Schultz 32-1, Gus Edwards 39-1, Disley 41-1, Shark 50-1, Herbert 70-1, Mechie 70-1, Houston defense 11 plus 110-1, Xavier Hutchinson 120-1. Dave, for 2 touchdown madness sake, let's take a Charger just because of Herbert's arm, and let's throw Shark in there. Why not? 50-1.
All right.
Him and Likely.
That sounds good to me.
Him and Isaiah Likely for 2 touchdowns, $5 pays $6,880.
Got to play it.
All right, so we'll give you a $2.50 stake on that, nephew Dave.
All right.
There we go. All right, so 2 touchdown madness for today. DJ Shark and Isaiah Likely. There you go. That might be the only ticket of that in the universe. Anything else here?
I bet it's nothing else here, Steve. I think You know, if you want to go with some of the Texans stuff, I think you make a good case for the receivers. Some of these guys that are going to have to kind of step up with those low hangers there. So good, really good angle there. And I just think it's the Chargers' time at the end of the day. So give me a Chargers W here.
All right, let's see here. We're going to go ahead and put a ticket together. And we're going to go with the team points. And we're going to go back to Pittsburgh in that game. And let's take that Steelers alternate total of over 13.5 at -188. Now -194. So I'm buying before it moves. I'll throw on the Chargers over 20.5 at -148. We'll go ahead and continue this into tomorrow. We'll take the Broncos and the Bills. But we'll take Denver. I almost want to take the Bills. Take Denver over 16.5. We'll take the Packers over 13.5. And then you can tell me where this ticket goes wrong.
That all sounds pretty good so far to me.
We'll take the Commanders. Let's see. We'll take the Commanders over 19.5. And we'll take I think we got to take the Vikings. Let's see here. Minnesota over 19.5. All right. All right. Chargers over 20.5. Steelers over 13.5. Denver over 16.5. Green Bay over 13.5. Washington over 19.5. Vikings over 19.5. Who's the one who screws that up, Dave? David, did I lose you? Earth you, David. Let's see here. Are we still on? Dave, you there?
Are you there? Yeah, you were frozen up over on my side.
Oh, okay. Interesting. All right, who loses this
so
ticket?
I didn't catch anything that you...
Okay, Chargers 20.5. Pittsburgh 13.5. These are all overs. Denver 16.5. Packers 13.5. Washington 19.5. Vikings 19.5. Which one would concern you the most?
Oh man, that's really hard to say. Boy, I think it's gonna have to be the Steelers for me. That's a really tough choice. But I'm just gonna go off of the angle of the Baltimore defense playing much better than when we were kind of picking on them. Steelers offense really struggling at the moment. You know, hopefully they can get that right for the game tonight. But with that equation, it would probably be the Steelers that messed that up, Steve.
Okay. All right. Let me go ahead and add this one in. I think I'll make this an official play. And that'll do it. All right, let me cue up our 2-touchdown score sounder for Saturday. You can give me your other best options for today. I'll give you my other best options for today. We'll get into our picks, and we'll take a quick look at hockey.
Johnny.
4 weeks.
20 papers, that's $2 plus tip.
Gee, Johnny, I don't have a dime. Sorry.
Didn't ask for a dime. $2.
Now give me 2 times and a Ric Flair.
It's a jungle out there. You got to look out for number 1, but don't step at number 2.
Utah, give me 2.
And Jimmy 2 times, who got that nickname because he said everything twice, like...
I'm going to go get the papers,
All right. Dave, who your other 2 touchdown scorer potentials for today?
2 touchdowns. I'll give you one from each game. Nelson Aguilar, of course. We know we talked about that one. So I'm going to stick to the guns on that. And then Ladd McConkey as well.
Let's see. Let's see what that one pays. Let me fire that one up. So Ladd McConkey. Everything's an autoplay now at this point. Ladd McConkey and Nelson Aguilar. That's going to be a nice little payday on that one. Because Aguilar is going to pay good. Just $5 on that pays $2,875. All right, I'll give you another one myself. Why not Lamar Jackson at 21-1? We'll throw him in there for 2, and then we'll go ahead in this game with Houston and the Chargers. Let's see, 4-2 touchdowns in this game. I mean, I almost want to do a lay. I mean, I don't know if Nico is a layup or not. He's an interesting one. Let's do Lamar Jackson, and we'll throw in. Should I just do Mixon? Let's see. Mixon and Lamar is at. Let's see, 130-1. We'll play that for 5, but let's play
that sounds
Lamar.
Pretty good.
And then we'll throw Disley in there because he likes him too. And that $5 pays $4,615. So Lamar and Disley on a ticket. All right, Dave, your other best bets for today.
There you go. I like that. Let's see here. I haven't gotten into any props or anything yet. I've been doing a lot of touchdown scores. So we'll just go we'll go with one of those. What do we? Let's pick one here. We'll go with this one. Saquon Barkley and Tucker Kraft mixed together. You get a nice little payout there. I went ahead and put Dobbins and Collins together as well. And then we'll go with Jaden Daniels and Bucky Irvings.
All right. And what I'll do is I'll take a look at the Raven team points over. I'll take a look at the Pittsburgh team points over. I'm talking myself into that. I'll look for Russell Wilson touchdowns and passing yards alternate over. I'll take a look at the alternate overs for Aguilar, likely Calvin Austin III, and Mark Andrews will be somewhere on my list as well. Also, I'm going to take a look at the Herbert passing props. I'm going to take a look at Stroud for rushing props and his big number at plus 1260. I'll tie that in the somewhere for 40 yards rushing for Stroud. And then I'll take a look at the low-hanging numbers for the receivers in this game, including DJ Shark, which I believe is pretty low. Mechie, I think, is fine. Probably even Woods is fine. Xavier Hutchinson, I think, is fine. Deontay Johnson is the question mark. I think Dobbins receiving yards is fine. I think Mixon receiving yards is fine. So there's a bunch of low hangers available in that Charger Texans game. Herbert props as well. And I'll take the Chargers to win this game by double digits. They can win on the alt line against the Texans. I think the big difference is the trenches at the end of the day. And I'll say both of these games go over the total as well. So 2 overs and at least one of the favorites with the Chargers covering. I'll be more of a over player and rather than a side player for the Ravens and the Steelers. All right, Dave, let's take a quick look at the NHL as your specialty, the host of What the Puck is Going On. Of course, we have games all day. So we have face-off in an hour and what should be a good game. Did the Capitals win last night?
They lost in overtime.
To Vancouver?
The Canadians.
Oh, Montreal, right. Well, what was that score?
3-2.
So the Capitals cooling off a little bit with the goals.
They're definitely cooling off some.
All right, Bruins and Panthers is a 1:00 hockey game. You looking at anything in that one?
I haven't looked into the NHL yet. I will here probably. When we get off, see if I got some boost to use or whatever. Give me the Bruins in this game, possibly at plus 164 on the money line.
Oh wow!
Something about Florida lately has just been kind of iffy to me.
Penguins will face it off before the Steelers. So if you're a Pittsburgh fan, you get a good little hockey before football. So that's a good combo. They get the Senators at home, and the Penguins underdog to the Senators. Give me the Pens in that one, Dave.
Yeah, I think I'm going to agree with you.
Buffalo plays the Kraken. I think we can both agree that's a game you probably run for the hills for, right?
Yeah, let's not get cute with that one.
Interesting game with Colorado and Winnipeg, the Jets, 7:00. Good hockey game. If you have multiple TVs still set up for in your sports lounge for football, go ahead and throw some of this hockey on. If you're having a boring day with college basketball. In fact, hockey is fun. So maybe do some $5. There we go. Freezing up again, Dave. I'm gonna have to have a talk with the old Cox Cable people. I'll give them a pass since it's a snow day. But I feel like the internet's been dropping out just a hair more than it should for all the money that we've been paying. That's for sure. So Cox Cable, you are on my list to call. But a good game, Dave, with the Avalanche and Jets, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, probably the game of the day on this slate.
Lightning and Devils is another good game. I'm not going to have a pick there. Give me the Jets team goals against Colorado at home over 3.5. Let's see, Vancouver and Toronto. I like Toronto at home here. Give me over 3.5 goals for them. Let me know if you have any thoughts on that one.
For Toronto?
Yeah.
Where is this one? Oh, yeah, I think that's probably a safe bet.
God, we got a lot of games today. Columbus and St. Louis is an interesting game.
I would actually take Columbus in this spot, plus 150 on the money line.
I could see the over in that game. Columbus has been an over team. Dallas is at Montreal, your Canadians who beat your Capitals last night. Dallas is now in town as a big favorite there. So the Canadians on the back-to-back. Edmonton is in Chicago, minus 410 favorites for the Oilers. So a big favorite there. Maybe a Dallas-Edmonton straight-up parlay, Dave? Pays minus 124.
Yeah, I could see it. Dallas is in a good spot, catching those Canadians on the back-to-back, and Edmonton is getting Chicago tonight. So, yeah, that would be a good two-teamer right there.
Right, and then let's see, Anaheim's in Philadelphia. The Capitals are in Nashville. What about that one?
Steve, I'm thinking this is going to be an under 5.5 at plus 105. Capitals haven't been putting them up lately. Nashville, kind of an under team themselves. Capitals played last night. That's just not going to be a good mixture in that game. So give me the under there.
Over 2.5 goals for the Capitals, minus 130. The Islanders are at Utah. That's kind of an interesting matchup, to be honest. 5.5 is the total there. You got good amount of 5.5s on the board today, actually.
There are, yep.
So, actually, a lot. Expecting a lot of lower scoring games. Scoring in the NHL, I'll have to take a look at that before our show to see where scoring is at this year compared to last year overall. The Rangers are at the Golden Knights later tonight. Minnesota's at San Jose, and the Kings and the Flames play Los Angeles on the road outside of that disaster area in Southern California. All right. Anything else on the NHL slate? What are your one or two best bets, maybe, just from everything we looked at preliminary wise?
All right, so best bets. I'm gonna actually stick with my guns here with the Blue Jackets. They have drawn into a playoff spot right now, wild card number 2, I believe it is. So give me them plus 150 on the money line, and I will take Boston as well at plus 164.
All right, let's see here. I will take. This is going to be this will be an interesting play. I will take. Well, I'm still adding it together. Stand by. I'm going to take the Capitals, Dave, just to. I'm not jumping ship on them quite yet here. All right, interesting play for me right now. Yeah, exactly for 3 goals. Anything else I want to add? I'll lay off Vegas just in case we should take the Wild at San Jose. All right, all this pays almost 17-1. The Stars on the money line at Montreal, Edmonton on the money line at Chicago, Columbus over 2.5 goals, Toronto over 3.5 goals, Washington over 2.5 goals, and the Minnesota Wild minus 200 over San Jose. Any thoughts there?
Yeah, I like that. I like it.
All right, so that's your hockey play for today. All right, Dave, let's go ahead and wrap it up. We will reconvene tomorrow morning. Special start time at 8 a.m. I'll come on, look at the lines, recap the day. We'll get Dave Del Grande on for about an hour tomorrow. No topics with him. I'll do the art of making tickets. I think Coach Dale wants to weigh in on his Sunday picks as well. And then me, Dave, and the Ant-Man in studio looking at everything on the board for the action Sunday and Monday. All right, Dave, good luck.
Good luck, my friend.
All right, I am Stephen Murray. This is the Round Robin. Wherever you are in this world, be safe. Have a good day.